All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Serious Angler Podcast, powered by our friends over X2 Power Batteries. We are back with another show, and unfortunately, we are captainless. Andy is under the weather, not feeling too hot, so you guys are stuck with me riding solo tonight. But nonetheless, we have a banger show and one that I'm really excited about because, these shows it's been the rave of conversation for, I don't even want to put a number on it, but a long time of just, futuristic things, what's been the rave. And I am just excited to talk with a guy that I've learned a lot about, I've heard a lot about, and I finally get to actually chat with him tonight because he's probably got the best handlebar in all of fishing. We're talking some flipping tonight. We're going to talk some Florida swing with Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Brad Whatley, who I've heard from several people throughout the industry, stand-up dude. So I'm really looking forward to tonight and diving in because seeing what's behind him, I think him and I will get along very, very well when it comes to the outdoors, things like that. But before we get him on, and we do have a part 2 for tonight. I know in some recent weeks we haven't had one lined up. It's just been a hectic couple weeks of work, as well as a bunch of things going on here at the podcast network. We're grinding away, trying to do our best for you guys, as well as set some things up for some big moves this year. But we do have a part 2 tonight. We have kayak fishing weekly hosts on our network, Justin Largen joining, as well as Drew Gregory, who's about to have their first kayak adventure series tournament on May 3rd, which is going to be, I can't remember, at least to my recollection, a tournament that has been, I remember the specific river name. We'll have Drew talk about it when we get on, but it's all going to be shoal bass, which is going to be pretty cool to tune into and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that. And I know our pal Alex Rudd's going to be fishing it. So there's going to be some cool content coming from there of people throwing glides and things like that for some big shoal bass. But before we get them on, they're going to be part 2 for the show. We're going to do some little bit of a fish it, box it, or trash it. So you guys have been a fan of that. So we're bringing that back this week. But before we get into the show, a couple things for you guys, especially if you're Omnia members, but if you're on Omnia in general, they're running a couple pretty sick deals, and everything that we talk about tonight with Brad, as well as the fellas later, we'll link down below. That way you guys can go and grab the different baits and things like that. But Omnia is doing a buy 2, get 1 free soft baits right now, as well as 15% off jerk baits, which is a pretty wicked deal for right now. Unfortunately, the only asterisk on that is it does not apply to Megabass. So sorry for folks that are thinking you're going to not pay $25 for Megabass jerk baits. They're still $25, but you can use our code nonetheless and try to save you guys a few bucks. But those are linked down below, as well as for my northern folk. We just had our first local tournament here in New York this past weekend. So if you're getting out in the spring, things are warming up. The whole country's now pretty much bass fishing. And you're looking for some new shades, Hobie Eyewear, we have our 20% off code. They've been doing a pretty bad job, honestly, of reminding you guys that year long we have this code, 20% off any pair of shades you guys want. The link is down below. All you got to do is click our link, and the code is automatically applied to your entire order. So feel free to snag some, especially when they're only $80 and they're as good as they are. I know for me, the Sightmaster Plus has been pretty clutch for this spring, especially going down to Murray, going to Lake Norman. That was pretty clutch for me. So check those out. And we had a couple of things we're going to talk about with Andy, because Andy actually did go fishing today. So the sucker's playing hooky for the podcast tonight, but he went fishing today. I don't know if that works out, but we're going to give him some crap nonetheless. But I'm looking forward to today's episode here. And so I think without further ado, let's get him on here. Mr. Brad Whatley, what's going on, sir?
Not much, man. Just hanging out, ready to do a show with you.
When did you get back from St. John's? It probably was today or yesterday?
Last night. Yeah, I got back last night. I wound up staying. I wound up staying at the Airbnb, just because. I mean, dadgum, dude, that was back-to-back weeks and fished. I don't know, how many days that was total with practice and the tournaments, but it was enough of them that I wasn't fixing to make that drive overnight.
Yeah, and well, especially because and working between work and the classic, and then you have fork, and it's been a bender for a lot of you guys for a while. Like if very little, if any, days at home, I can imagine.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, that's this life. You're, as though, I mean, you're balls to the wall whenever you're going, and then, and then when it slows down, of course, I like to pick that bow up and in the fall, hunt a few of them whitetail, but or elk or whatever. I actually went on an elk hunt this past year, and I mean, I know we're here to talk about fishing, but if you've never been on an elk hunt, that was my first time, and they were bugling, and I was literally like 8 yards from a like a 375, 380 class bull. And I mean, he was screaming his head off, and I'm telling you, every hair on my body was standing up. And I had done ran like a mile across this mountain trying to get to him. And anyway, cows got downwind of me and winded me, and of course they took off. But I've never had an adrenaline rush like that. I mean, I've caught a lot of big fish in my life, and you get an adrenaline rush from that. But and I've always said if you could bottle that and sell it, it'd be the most expensive drug in the world. Catching a giant, but that elk, when that elk's screaming that head off, man, I don't know. That's a different level right there for guys that have done it all their lives. I mean, I know they're used to it. I had never done it, always wanted to, but yeah. Anyway, it was fun.
That's a whole different. That's like this for people that may not understand that feeling. It's basically take the split second when you're like punching a mat or you're flipping, which we're going to talk about today,
Right,
and you
right.
get that bite and you first set the hook, take that and times it by 1,000,000, and that's what's going
Yeah.
through it. Like it's
Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
turkey hunters, it's like turkey hunting times 1,000,000. Like kind of
Oh
just
yeah.
that when you get a turkey up close and it's gobbling doing whatever, and it can kind of reverberate through you a little bit. It's louder than you expect. It's you take that and just multiply it. It's
Well, you know what's crazy? I was actually talking to Hackney in the weighing line. We got their weighing in on day 4. Dude, I've never killed a turkey. And I mean, people look and they're like, that redneck's never killed a turkey. I mean, and of course I said that to He's like, well, hell no, you're always bass fishing. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess that's what the deal is. But good buddy of mine, Brock Mosley, we're supposed to, if we can get it lined up, we were going to do it last year. We've got a couple of weeks here on a break. Of course, he's got cows, so he's got to get his cow situation because he's been gone lined up. But we're going to try to head up to the lease in Oklahoma and try to get a bird because I've never done it. I mean, I know people that are huge turkey hunters, and it's like, I mean, it's like an addiction to them that's unbelievable. I hear them talk about it. They're like, dude, don't ever go kill one because if you ever kill one, I mean, if you call one up and you kill it, it's like you're hooked for life. But I've never done it. I want to do it. We're gonna try to get it done this week.
yeah, it's the biggest problem, at least for me here in New York, is for people that know, April is the dumbest time of year to fish in New York. Like if you have a hook on the end of your line, you're going to catch the crap out of them. You're going to catch big ones because they're fat, they're happy because ice is gone, and they're
All right.
feeding up to get ready to do their thing. And so, but also driving through all these fields in the morning, I'm seeing them strutting everywhere, and I'm sitting there like I'm trying to go fish, but I'm also seeing them in fields. It's the worst thing for me. And like my brother is to hunting that I am to fishing, and so it's easier for him to go and get out in the woods. But it's such inner turmoil when I'm driving to the lake and I see him strutting like that. It's like God. And the amount of videos I sent to my brother, who's now in Utah, which him and I, well, years and years ago, when we were in high school, went out to Montana and hiked and everything, and that's when we first heard uh, elk bugling like up close and everything like that. And I think that's why he moved out to Utah now and hunts them and lives out there.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, he moved out there. He went full bore like I'm gonna live this now. And so I'm gonna go visit him when it's season there and go scout with him type of deal. But uh, yeah, dude, it's there's a lot of guys like yourself, Matt Airy, Mosley. There's a whole handful of guys, Hackney that give up the rod for a little bit to either go bow hunt, turkey hunt, whatever it is. And
Oh yeah.
that just screams outdoorsman to me. And I think that's where
Right.
it
Right.
comes like you kind of see that. It's almost like a weird trend of guys that like yourself that like to get up shallow, like to get instinctual about things. Like you see that
Yeah.
with Hackney, and Erie seems to catch them every freaking where you guys go. So
Right.
there's kind of like a trend with that. The guys that are a little bit more like, I'm gonna go look around, I'm gonna see the birds, I'm gonna be in nature and catch them that way. Where there's
Yeah.
kind of like that trend. I don't know.
Well, and it's a generational thing too, really. I mean, in my opinion, I mean, it's like if you look at the guys that are, mid 30s to 40 years old or even older, guys in their 50s or whatever that are fishing professionally, they didn't have, for the most part, they didn't have, there was no internet, there was nothing pushing bass fishing. You know what I mean? So it was just, you were either born loving it or you weren't. I mean, that's just part of that's you're born with that. I mean,
Yep.
and that that's I guess that's why when you're talking about instinctual. I mean, that's what those guys came up. That's how they came up fishing. So it just comes natural to them, and that's just all outdoors. I mean, that's the hunting side. That's whatever. I don't personally know a guy that's at least in their 30s that is professional bass fishermen that don't hunt as well. I mean, in fact, most of them. I mean, I know most of them had rather hunt probably than they had bass fish. I mean, I've never personally met Andy Morgan, but I mean, I've watched a lot of stuff on him, and I mean, he's made the comment several times. He just bass fishes to feed his hunting habit. So yeah, I mean, it's just that I think that's that part of that deal. Those guys just grew up, loving bass fish, that age group, and there wasn't like I said, there wasn't you know, all the hype like there is nowadays. Obviously, I mean, we live in different times. Obviously, I mean, things you just didn't have the flow of information. And when I say a flow of information, I'm talking about all you had back then was magazines. For the
Yep.
most part, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got live. I mean, we've got podcasts. So uh, it's just different. That's basically in my opinion on it.
Yeah, and it's funny because we got Andy, the co-host, here in the comments, but he is not on the show here to derail a hunting conversation. So I always get on tangents when we talk hunting. So we're here.
Right,
He's
right.
not here to disrupt the conversation, so we can keep going down this. But my last point on it that I love seeing is guys like you see with Andy Morgan, especially because I think it's First Light that's his title now, and then you
Yeah,
have like Atkins and Wiggins. I know there's more that work with like a bone collector, and you see some guys that are working with
right.
like Millennium Tree Stands. Like I love seeing that crossover of guys that are like.
Yeah.
But I also have this hunting passion. I have this following from fishing, and a lot of guys that fish also hunt. So it's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
cool to see that mesh over from the business side too, to see that passion come in. But
They're just
do you have
outdoors.
any hunting sponsors?
What's that?
Do you have any hunting sponsors?
No, no, not hunting sponsors. Everything hunting wise is coming out the back pocket.
Well, here you go. Anyone that's tuning in, he's a free agent.
Oh yeah, free agent for sure. And we got some big deer, and we go all over. So I mean, it's we could definitely get some good content on some big animals we put on the ground.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, I could talk hunting for literally hours, but one thing I
Yeah,
really wanted to break down with you is one, talk about your Florida swing, and then two, like when it comes to flipping vegetation, whether we're talking, pencil reeds, submerged vegetation, mats, things like that. It can when you see when you go to a Florida lake like you were on, and
yeah,
around the whole ring of it is all reeds that you can flip. It's
yeah.
kind of very overwhelming for even a guy that's been there countless times. So we're gonna get into that. But one thing we like to do here is anyone that's new to the show is throw it back to the original time. Like who is at fault for this lifelong addiction of fishing? How'd you get that started?
Uh, so my story is probably a little different than some other people. Man, I live in or I grew up. Let me say this: I went to school in a town with a population of like 5,500, and I actually lived 10 miles from there with a population of like 300. So you know, fishing in general, I grew up fishing. My dad was a huge fisherman, but not a bass fisherman. He actually didn't even like bass fishermen, to be honest with you. We grew
Okay.
up using a mechanical mechanism called a yo-yo, which people probably don't know what that is, but It's just basically a spring loaded little piece of metal with rope in it, and you put a hook on it and tie it on whatever you want. We tied it on cypress trees, but whatever you want to tie it on. And anyway, that's what I grew up doing. Now, when I say I grew up doing that with my dad on the lake, I grew up on a lake called Caddo Lake, but I bass fished. I probably had like 8 or 10 ponds around, within a couple of miles of my house, and that's what I did every day, every single day. Uh, I bass fished. When I got out of school, I went bass fishing, and in reality, I mean, I'm not trying to date myself. I mean, I'm 43 years old, but you didn't have the big tackle stores. I used to make my own spinner baits. I remember doing that when I was a kid. I make my own spinner baits, um, and like a Mepps rooster tail. I mean, you could buy that, and that was huge. I mean, caught a lot of fish on that. But that's all I did, man, was just walk the banks of ponds continually. I was addicted to it. And I can't really say anybody got me into it. My dad, like I said, was a big fisherman, but not a bass fisherman. So I don't know, really where that addiction came from, but no different probably than anybody else. Once you get, and of course, like what a tiny torpedo is. I mean, we used to throw like little tiny torpedoes. So like, you have a fish blow up on a tiny torpedo. I mean, you're hooked. So I mean, that's kind of my first memories of it. Um, I got hooked on it from doing that, from just beating the banks on ponds all the time, every single day. And I think I actually stained one of the ponds. I don't believe there was anything left in it after a couple of years. And I remember, now we used to eat them. I mean, there was no such thing as catch and release. And I mean, so I remember like I was 5 years old, and I brought like, I'd bring like one bass a day home or whatever. And my dad got tired of it, got tired of cleaning one fish every day. And he told me at 5 years old, he was like, "Son, you fishing learn how to clean this fish, because I ain't cleaning them no more." And so I learned how to clean fish. And but dude, that's where it started for me. Really, there was, like I said, my dad was an outdoorsman for sure. He got me into hunting, got me into fishing. Um, but it wasn't like that was out of the norm where I live. That's what everybody did. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody was hunting, everybody was fishing. And I was actually 19 years old. I remember I bought my first bass boat. I don't even think the company's in business anymore, but it was called an Astro. And it was a 17-foot bass boat and had a 115 Mariner on it. And dude, I thought I mean, that was like a Ferrari to me or something, I mean, I'd come up in a stick steer boat with my dad, a little 60 horse, 50 horse. And so anyway, bought that and just started fishing a lake called Caddo Lake, and but I had never had any lake experience bass fishing until I was 19. It was all ponds. Now I was at a lake, like I said, every day, but it was running trot lines, running limb lines, running yo-yos. I mean, we was catching catfish and crappie, and all that kind of stuff. And I know, I mean, I'll just keep rambling if you don't shut me up and ask me another question. But that's how I came up, just like I said, addicted to the bite. And that's what gets everybody addicted. I told the guy when I caught this past Saturday when I had the big bag on St. John's, I mean, I caught a big one, put it in the boat, and of course I'm panting, I mean, it's a big fish. And that dude's high-fiving me, going crazy. That guy was local from Jacksonville. And I said, dude, I'm gonna tell you something, I said, it don't matter how young or how old you are. I mean, if you're 80 years old and you get that bite, uh, dude, literally, if you could, if there was a way to bottle that, and sell that 3 seconds that
Mhm.
that pandemonium goes on. I mean, I don't know, dude. That would be I wish you could just take a shot of that every morning, before you take off.
I believe they call that now 5-hour energy.
Yeah, 5 hours.
At least as close as you can get to it anyway.
Right, right.
But so before we get into talking, vegetation and Florida swing,
Yeah.
so Caddo Lake, actually, me being the kayak angler, and we have a kayak show on our network as well called Kayak Fishing Weekly. There's a lot of people that tune into it that have fished Caddo, because Caddo is actually a pretty popular kayak tournament lake anyway.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and I have a vendetta against Caddo, but we won't get into that, or at least right now in this one.
She can be stingy, I promise you.
Yeah, I learned that quick. But what if you could name one favorite bait, or a way to approach fishing cypress trees?
Fishing
What would that?
cypress trees?
Yeah.
One bait and one bait alone. Um, if I'm going for a big one, man, it's probably going to be a jig. I'm probably gonna throw a jig. And I'm talking that January, February time of year because that's our pre-spawn, around here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's that. That can be a downfall. Always fishing for big ones, obviously. But that's what I like to do. And I mean, it's generally a hero zero kind of thing, and a jig is too. I mean, that's what a jig does. A jig will get you big bites, and a jig will get you no bites. So I mean, it's just. But that's it. If I had one bait, if you said just give me one bait and one bait alone to throw at a cypress tree, I'm gonna probably pick that jig up.
Heck yeah. Well, we have a guy here on Facebook, Jeremy Johnson, that says I used to donate money to Brad every time I fished a caddo tourney. Well, it sounds like you had her pretty dialed. I'd imagine growing up on it, but that's
It
cool,
was
man.
fun for sure. It's a different lake. It's the only natural lake in the state. It's half in Louisiana and Texas, but it's the only natural lake that's in the state of Texas. It's a beautiful lake. I mean, if you there's nothing like it in the country. I mean, I would say just about all over the country and looked at lakes that have cypress trees in them and stuff, but it's nothing like there's nothing like this place really. I mean, it's when I say it's dominated, which you obviously know. I mean, when I say it's dominated by cypress trees, I mean the whole thing is cypress
Oh
trees.
yeah. Yeah,
So
it's a sea of it. It's pretty
yeah,
overwhelming for this New Yorker that's used to light
right.
line and smallmouth. I go down there and I'm like, well, what am I looking at here?
Yeah, it
But
all looks the same. A lot of lakes that have cypress trees, they'll have a big open, like Santee and all that stuff. They'll have big open areas, and then of course the cypress trees, outline the bank. But that's not Caddo at all. It's you start on this bank. If you were able to go straight across the lake to the other bank, you're gonna have to weave and dodge, 3 million cypress trees to get there. So
yeah, it was pretty entertaining while we were there. We were there for the Hobie BOS Tournament of Champions, and they sent all 50s out the opening day of duck season. That's when I really learned what a real duck season is like.
yeah, that probably wasn't that
No,
probably
no, there
yeah.
was a lot of arguments and people dodging, getting shot at.
Yeah, you got some freaking rednecks down there. I mean, I'm talking about crazy people. Yeah, I don't know. Y'all might maybe want to pick a different date on that next time.
Yeah, we saw that, and it didn't ring a bell for me, but some of my buddies that are pretty avid duck hunters as well that were fishing tournament were like, "Hey, have you factored in the whole duck season into your tournament strategy? I'm not getting
Yeah,
shot day one." I was like, "What are
exactly.
you doing?" Yeah,
Yeah, they'll
it was.
shoot you. I promise you. They
Oh, there
will.
was a few guys that had stories after that event that got into some heated things with some guys that
I'm
apparently
sure.
had like their duck blinds or whatever on some of the shell bars there, and it was like he's trying to fish that. They're trying to shoot him. They just had to come back later whenever they decided to pick up and leave. But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. That's the best thing because that rod and reel don't ever they don't compete with that shotgun. So
no,
you
no, you
don't
ain't
let
gonna
the,
do it, especially in a
no,
plastic boat. I mean, your
no,
odds are
no.
against you.
Yeah, they're stacked against you. Let them guys get their limited ducks, and then you can go fishing. But yeah, I learned that years and years ago. I'm not gonna say I've been shot, but I have been, let's say, peppered. I've had some shots rain around me in years past, and I love the duck hunt. So yeah, I mean, you definitely kind of got to give those guys that water.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, learned that real fast. But dude, let's get into your Florida swing. I think the biggest thing for you guys as professionals living a career of bass fishing is you hear it a lot from a bunch of guys who like just make it out of Florida alive, and I'd say
Yeah,
you did a damn good job of that. So kind
right.
of walk us through like a brief overview of how Harris Chain went for you, as well as St. John's River.
Yeah, you know, so my back was against the wall. First off, um, I had I had a good day one, or a decent day one at Toledo, and a decent, pretty decent day one at Fort. at both of those events, but I just, I crapped the bed on day 2 at both of them, and I don't even remember where I finished. You don't look when you finish that low. I mean, it was in the 80s or 90s, but it was terrible. And so my back was kind of against the wall. But I knew going into Florida, and I really can't explain it. Like, people ask me, I've been asked 1,000 times, like, man, why do you catch them in Florida? And you got to understand, dude, I had never been to Florida until I started doing this. So it's not like I have any history in Florida. I don't, I haven't spent any time there fishing before I started doing this for a living. And but for some reason, I just connect well with Florida. Obviously, it's loaded with. I mean, their golf course has probably got 15 10-pounders in it at every golf course pond. I mean, it's got giants in Florida, and I do well with big fish. In a finicky type of way. I mean, like, if you're in there in Florida in February, me personally, I mean, obviously people catch them a million different ways, but me personally, it's, I'm going to flip. That's what I'm going to do. 99.9%. I would love to catch them on a moving bait. Don't get me wrong. And I did this time. I caught them on a moving bait, but we were later in the year. But in February, I'm going to flip. That's what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm used to it. I understand it. I'm looking for 7 or 8 bites a day. That's my game plan when I go out. But we started out in Harris Chain, and I really thought I was going to have a good shad spawn go down there, and same thing at St. John's. But we had day 1 was canceled due to weather, and of course that wind just never checked up. And for me, it just trashed my shad spawn, areas that I had. There was 2 and 3 footers coming in on it, and I mean, I just couldn't get bit on it. I tried and tried and tried and tried and tried to get bit. But I had going into that in practice, I had I fished a Patka there in 22, I think. That's the last time the elites were there. And I mean, I did decent, I don't remember, finished, I think, 30th or something, 29th, 35th, somewhere in there. I was in around the 30s, and I fished the Patka the whole time. But the word wasn't out on a Patka back then, like it has been the last couple of years. And so it didn't draw as many people. And then this time I did spend a day and a half in a Patka, and I really anticipated, I thought I was going to be in the first flight, is why I did that. Because I knew they had a locking problem down there, where the lock was taking anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, and it only hosts 3 boats. So, I mean, you just do the math on that real quick. Let's say your boat 25 and 17 boats go. Dude, you ain't going. You know what I mean? I mean, you ain't getting through. I mean, if you are, what are you going to do? Get through the lock, make one flip, turn around, and get back in the lock? And the bad thing is you're dedicated once you go that far too. Unless you better have something in Beau Claire or Dora or wherever, Carlton, one of those lakes, to bail out on. So, but I had a phenomenal, dude. I mean, I've obviously flipped my whole life, and I would say that was a top 5 flipping bite that I've ever been on in my life at a Patka. It was incredible. And but the weather, and I don't know because I'm not a local there. All I can do is just guess. But anyway, I drew a bad boat number, and so I was boat like 51 or something like that, which is horrible because that means on day 2 you're boat 53 or 54, so you're mid-pack both dates. Yeah. So I was like, it was out. Like, I wasn't going to Patka, and I was like, God Almighty, dude, what am I going to do? Like, I mean, I'm foaming at the mouth to go down there and pick that castaway flipping stick up. And anyway, it things work out for a reason sometimes. I wound up obviously not going to a Patka, and I just stayed in Harris. I stayed in Big Harris day 1, and I caught an 8-pounder, or not an 8-pounder. I think they were both right, like a 714 or something like that. But I caught one right at 8 pounds, and it was 8:30, and I was like, okay, because I had my mind made up. I was so far back in points, like I needed to catch them, like a 50th or 60th place finish wasn't going to do for me. Like I had needed to catch them well, And I really thought the only place I could catch them obviously well was in a pocket. And based off my practice, I said, man, if I just get 35, 40 minutes in a pocket, I'm going to catch what I need. And so my game plan was at 9 o'clock. If I don't have 10 pounds, because it's no secret, Harris Chain's been fishing pretty tough for the last year. And so I had a number in my head. If I didn't have 10 pounds, 10 or 11 pounds by 9 o'clock, I was going to roll. And hopefully whoever had went through to a pocket was out, and I could at least go check it and see if I could get through the lock. And at 8:30, I catch one right at 8 pounds. Well, that was it. Like, I ain't leaving. Like, I'm gonna scrounge out a limit, to go with this 8 pounder. And that's what I wound up doing. I wound up catching. I went and caught a limit, um, primarily on the chatterbait. And at the end of the day, I came back into Big Harris and I caught another one right at 8 pounds, which gave me a big bag. Gave me, I think, 22 pounds. And of course, we rolled and went into the weigh-in. But what's crazy, and that's touring on the road. Touring has taught me this, and I think it's the difference. Like, you see guys all the time that are local hammers and whatnot, and when you get out on the road, that's the difference in a touring pro and a local hammer is basically just being able to make adjustments on the fly. Because when you're on your home pond, you kind of know, you've seen that scenario enough on your home pond that you know what to do, and when to make that change. So there on day 2, I go out and man, I started the shad spawn again, trying to do the shad spawn again, and the area was trashed again. So I just swapped areas of the lake and I just started running around. Well, I pulled up and um, picked up an epic swim jig, and right off the bat, I busted, I think, like a 4.5 and then a 2, like back-to-back fish. And I mean, it wound up good on that. But what's crazy is I never caught a fish on a swim jig on day 1. Not one single fish on a swim jig. And on day 2, I did. I mean, I caught whatever I had. I caught just about my whole bag on day 2. I caught a clutch 5-pounder at the end of the day. But I probably caught, once I caught that 5-pounder, man, I bet I caught, I don't know, 20 keepers probably on a swim jig in about an hour. So, I mean, of course, if you put a swim jig in my hand, dude, that's my drug. Like, I love that. So
you weren't having any fun. No fun was had.
No, it was terrible. I mean, it was a terrible time. I wouldn't advise that for anybody at all. It's horrible. It'll make you hate bass fishing, getting bit on a swim jig. But yeah, I mean, I had to change every day, really. I mean, that was the whole deal. And then, of course, I made it. I made the cut. Went to day 3, and John was catching them, and I knew he was going to catch them. I mean, he was consistent, and I felt like I knew I could catch them, but I wasn't going to catch enough. And so, like, I've always, and I'm going to say probably most professionals think the way I think, that do it for a living, but there's some that don't. But most guys, if they ever smell blood, if they think they got a chance, tent's the worst you can do, which is what I did. But I mean, that's the worst you can do. Once you make it to day 4, I mean, that's it. So anyway, I went to Apaca days 3, and I had an opportunity. I really did. They bit a little bit. It was nothing like it was in practice. I just think that storm had just trashed that whole lake. But I did have an opportunity at 2 big fish, and I actually broke one of them off, and the other one pulled off. And that's the thing about Florida. It was the same thing to St. John's. When you get around those big fish in Florida, I've noticed this over the years. You can literally drop your Raptors, and because it happened to me in both spots, both lakes. You could drop your Raptors and you could catch 30 pounds and never pick them up. And then that's what's so crazy. I'm talking about within 180 degrees, casting around. It's like when they get in an area, it's like it's big ones, and it's all big ones, and then you can go for a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile and never get a bite. They're just not there, or you'll catch a couple of rats, and that's the thing about Florida, and I guess that's why I do well there. I understand that first off, you got to get bites. Like if you, and when I, and I know that's, you can say that for all lakes, but Florida's a different animal. You're either around some fish or you ain't around nothing. Whereas you can go to a
Right.
lot of lakes, let's say a lake with some docks or whatever. I mean, you really ain't got to, you're not really around a group of fish. You just fish in docks and hope you get 5 or 10 or 15 bites or whatever. I mean, Florida's not that way. I mean, the vegetation looks the same, everything looks the same, but that's how I grew up. We were just talking about Caddo Lake, so you learn from a young age. That's where experience, in my opinion, comes in on that kind of stuff. Instinctual fishing. E- everything looks the same to some people, and maybe to most people, but it don't look the same to everybody. People
Right.
that have grown up doing that, they see the little small differences, and that's, I've I've picked up on that throughout my life. I mean, I fished what we call buck brush around here. I mean, I flip buck brush, flip cypress trees, but I mean, there's difference in bushes. Believe it or not, not you may look at it and it just looks like a mile of bushes, going down the bank, but it ain't all the same. Now to
Right.
most people that have never seen it, it all looks the same. But it's not. And the same can probably more than likely be said. In fact, I know it can be said. Um, for smallmouth fishing up north. I mean, stuff's different. Like I it don't, for me, a lot of it all look the same. But I know for guys that live up there, I mean, they know to look for the veins. They know, they know what to look for. In the rocks and all that kind of stuff, and the sand mixed in. I mean, they know what they're looking for in that stuff. Of course, I'm learning and continue to learn that, um, which is basically what I've done down here over the years. I've just learned that there's little things inside those big things where it all looks the same, and when you figure that out and you key in on that, it makes the lake fish a lot smaller, which is a good thing at that point in time. It's not overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like it don't
Right.
just, it's not 9,000 pencil reeds or 9,000 flat reeds or, different types of pads and all that kind of stuff. And that's really what I did at both of those events. Once I picked up on what they were setting up on and how they were setting up and the baits that they wanted, that's the other thing. You've got to figure out what they'll eat because they'll always, you can catch them on a lot of different baits a lot of times, but there's always one particular bait that they want, more so than the others. And when you get dialed in on that, you can crack a big bag, but you're also still at the mercy. Big fish are just like big deer. Like you see these deer behind me. I mean, they're just like big deer. They're not stupid. I believe that. Like people want to say, "Oh, fish are stupid." No, they're not either. I don't believe it. Now, I mean, anybody can be stupid on any particular day. I mean, that's why we have the rut and deer get killed.
That's right.
But fish are not stupid, not big ones. They aren't. I mean, forward facing sonar will show you that. If you don't believe it, I mean, you can get out there and look at 2 pounders and you can catch the fire out of them. You throw it a big one, it's a 6 or 8 pounder, and I mean, you chase that sucker around to get him to bite. So I mean, it's just, and it shows you that. That's kind of opened our eyes to that. But I've always known that. I mean, them big ones aren't dumb, and you really are at the mercy of them, either on figuring out what'll trigger them or when that little time frame is that they're going to bite. And that's just that's the game you play. It's a dynamite. It can blow up in your face, um, or it can be good because and typically in Florida, if you've watched, and obviously you have, I mean, I'm talking about anybody that's watched it. I mean, Florida is generally, you see big bags down there. I mean, it's generally one or two fish that make that bag. It's not
Mhm.
like if a guy has 21 pounds or whatever, I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen because it does, but rarely does he have 5 4 pounders. You know what I mean? Or if he's got
Yeah.
29 pounds, he don't have five right at 6 pounds. I mean, that's just Florida 101. That's the way it works. Um, but if you're around 3 pound, I would say class fish, 3 to 4 pound fish, you're around 7 and 8 pounders too. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
in Florida. They're there.
So to break this down a little bit, like when you were backtracking, when you were mentioning to some people, they look at it and they see a lake of just reeds all over the bank, where you can see something different, where it might be just a flat line of reeds, where some it might be reeds that have a couple isolated patches that are outside of it that might look a little bit different. But talk about like of a lake like Florida. You
Mhm.
go into it, it looks like just a bowl with a
Yeah,
bunch of reeds around. What are
yeah.
some of the telltale signs or first clues you might see that might look different or might pop out at you first to say that I'm going to catch one flipping there, I'm going to catch one there? Like, what are some of the
So,
things that stand out to you in a field that all might look the same to people?
so the first thing that I always look for um, is whatever is the least available. And so, like, if you've got, let's just say, you're in a huge pad field, okay, and and then there's just isolated uh, little pennywort mats, or isolated pencil reeds, or isolated flat reeds, or whatever. But there's not as many of it, and that's not just Florida. I mean, that's down south in general. You're trying to find. That's the first thing I'm going to look for. Is I'm going to try to find whatever is the least vegetation. Like it's not the most abundant thing. It just seems to attract them. What I found really was different this time than February when we were there in the past is I caught the majority of my fish, if not all of them, really, probably in February on pencil reeds, and I caught them in a total different section of the lake. And we're still talking about Harris chain here. Um, and then, of course, when I went back this time, I mean, they were on a total different type of reed. I mean, it wasn't a pencil reed. Now, the thing that was different and I'll say that this is probably one of the only times I've ever seen this. Anything that's isolated is always going to be good. Obviously, cypress trees. I mean, I learned that from cypress trees years ago. I mean, if you got an isolated cypress tree, your percentage goes up. Obviously, on getting bit on that tree. But this was one of the few times that I saw that you can also generally tell if they're in or out. And what I mean by that is if they're on the outer edges of the cover, or if they're on what I consider like the hard line of the cover, whatever your hard line is. And I couldn't do that this time. And that was one of the rare times in my life that I can remember that I could catch a 7 pounder on the hard line just as well as I could on an isolated patch. And I can't tell you why that is. I really don't know. I mean,
Hmm.
of course, nobody knows. We don't all have. There are no perfect answers to bass fishing.
Right.
I mean, there's no written book, which is what keeps us all going in it. I mean, if it was that easy to figure out, I've said this for years. If I caught a 10 pounder every time I went to the lake, I wouldn't do this crap. There's no way.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds crazy to say that failure, but dude, failure builds character. Failure makes you appreciate winning at any level. I don't care what it is. I mean, if I won every single time that I went out, I wouldn't do it. I mean, and so like if you take, and I know, dude, I'll ramble on and get completely off subject, but like if you take, uh, you know, I don't care what the sport is. It can be little league baseball, but if you're just fishing, you're fishing Tuesday nighters. Well, if you're dominating Tuesday nighters, you're going to move up and you're going to fish whatever, BFLs. If you're dominating BFLs, you're going to move up to coasters. I mean, if you have that competitive nature in you, because I mean,
Right.
I'm not going to say that I seek failure because nope, that's not the case. I've had enough of it on tour, but it there's like I said, I think it built. I have learned. I've said this a lot of times too throughout my life. I've won a lot of tournaments, regionally, locally in the area that I live, and there's been a lot of times where I've won those tournaments where I didn't really learn anything, to be honest with you, and I really sometimes don't even know why I won them. I mean, as far as what the fish were doing, they don't make sense. But there's been a ton of them that I haven't won that I've lost. And I actually learned more from those tournaments than the ones that I did where I won. That sounds crazy, but it's the truth. You learn a lot uh, through failure a lot of times. So, and failure,
Mhm.
I'm talking about if you ain't finishing, old Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last, But I mean, if
Right.
it's it's the truth, but I do, you learn a lot from it. But, as far as like that cover too, another thing I look for, like in Florida, obviously it's the isolated stuff, is what you're going to start. And you're going to look at the different, and it just so happened to be reeds at Harris Chain, but that's not the deal at St. John's, or it wasn't for me, this time around. But you're looking for a big root system too. That's something that I look for. That's what makes a cypress tree special. That's what
Right.
separates a cypress tree from any other cypress tree. If you could drain the water and actually see that, which we have, technology now that you can see all that. But for years, like you just had this special cypress tree that you always caught them off of, and you're like, why you catch them off that one? Well, it's because of the root system. There's something that root system is unique. There's probably holes in it, that hold a lot of brim, hold a lot of whatever, to get in it. But that's the same thing with those, with pads, because the pads that grow in Florida are not the same pads. Like, we have what I call flat pads, and what I mean is they lay flat on the water. And you've got dollar pads and stuff like that in Florida, but those pads in Florida, they're like a damn bush, really. I mean, they grow up out of the water in a cluster. Yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
dang cluster. So I look at that. When I see that, I look at it like I'm flipping a bush, or I'm swimming a jig by a bush. So that's kind of how I picture that, how I look at that. But that reeds, pads, whatever. I'm trying to see if I see a cluster that, because a lot of that stuff you can see based off of the stalks, that come out of it. If it has a bigger root system to it, then I know that my odds go up to make a flip in that vicinity.
Yeah. And so with that, from your standpoint, practice wise, when you're going and say you're visiting a popka and looking for that flip and bite, are you typically, and this is like specifically for tournament anglers, is that, and that, you know, maybe you'll run into two, maybe three bites throughout a multi-day tournament of big bites.
Right.
Are you setting the hook at all in practice, or are you shaking everything off? Because that's a whole different bite than finding a shell bar where you might have,
Yeah.
usually it'll be more numbers.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this. I do, obviously, when I first get bit, I set the hook, because I mean, there's a lot of different freaking fish that live in Florida. I mean, and they all bite. I mean, there's all kinds of crap down there. And I got a funny, I mean, kind of a funny story. Like, Tyler Rivette rooms with us, and I remember one time on St. John's, like, dude, he thought he was freaking on them, son. I'm talking about on them, shaking them off right and left. And he goes down there for the day of the Derby, and it ain't nothing but mudfish. I mean, they're all mudfish. He done shook off 20 mudfish in practice. So I mean, you got to set the hook some. But for example, at Apaca, when the first day of practice I got there, uh, I mean, I had two big ones right off the bat, and then of course I started shaking them off, uh, and then I just left the area. Um, and then I went 6 hours without a bite. I never had a bite, not a single bite. And it's a big Apaca's big. That sucker's not a little bitty lake. And I never had a bite. And that's the thing with Florida. I mean, there's generally a bunch of them in a little area, even though it all looks the same as far as vegetation. And really, all you could do on that, I mean, there again, now I'm still using what I told you as far as the bigger root systems and the little points or whatever that's different. But I've got that trolling motor on high, until I find where I start getting bit, and I'll set the hook the first time or two. When I start getting bit, and then of course I'll start shaking them off, and then once I'm getting several bites, like, I keep the trolling motor on high, and I'm probably only hitting a tenth of what I think is holding fish. And as long as I'm still getting bit, because you got to kind of, it's a different deal. Like, for example, in Apaca, that's a different place than, say, if I was fishing Harris Chain. Like, at Harris Chain, I won't spend as much time. Like, if I was on a flipping bite, for example, in Harris Chain, I wouldn't spend as much time. I say Harris Chain. If I'm in Big Harris, I wouldn't spend as much time, uh, like, trying to figure out where they start and where they end on the bites is what I mean, like the area. I know because I know I can figure that out during the tournament. I've got time. But a Paca, you
Right.
don't have time to figure that out because you really don't know when you take off every morning how many people are locking. You know what's the lock situation going to be like. So like when I went into that deal thinking I was flight one, uh, my mindset was I knew when I got there is how many bites can I get in 3 hours because that's just what I look at. Like that's what I'm going to probably get. Now, I mean, if everything goes wonderful, you might get 5.5 hours to fish, but how many bites can you get in 3 hours? Because that's tournament situation. That's what you're looking at is a 3 hour window at best. A lot of times you might only have an hour. You know, like I said, it just depends. You never know what curveball is going to be thrown your way. Um, but so when I practice over there, I practice a little different. I keep the trolling motor on high, like I said, as long as I'm getting bit. And now once I notice like I'm starting to not get bit as much, then I will slow down and actually start to pick it apart a little better, just to verify and make sure that okay that I'm out of them. Because when I get there tournament day, I don't have time to break it down and figure out where they're at. Now, I mean, I may have to figure out if they've gotten off of a bait or whatever, you know. But as far as where they're living at, you better know where they live when you get there, because if you don't know where they live, you're in trouble. You know, I mean, so you can't just go over there and say, well, you know, like a normal place. Well, I had 6 or 8 bites in here. You know, I'll figure it out in the Derby, which is what you know what we all normally do. But you can't do that, in my opinion. You better know where they live, and I mean, you better land on them, and you better start catching them. And that's really, you know, I don't care where you go. I mean, that's anywhere you're making a long run or you know, you have several locks or whatever. Because I've done it my whole career. I mean, I've done it on the Red River. I've run for long. You know, Winyah Bay. Like Winyah Bay is a good example. I mean, you better know where they're at when you get there. You ain't got time to figure them out. You know, so it's those are just examples. You know, of there's different. You know, the way I practice different depending on the situation. You know that I know I'm going into. Um,
Right.
but yeah, like day 3 and 4. I mean, dude, I didn't have anything to lose. Like I knew John was going to catch them. You know, he'd showed that all week, and so I needed some big bags, and I couldn't catch them. I couldn't win. I mean, I could have stayed, you know, close and caught whatever, you know, 12, 15, 16 pounds. I don't know, but I wasn't going to catch 20 something pounds. And I knew in Apaca, you know, you know, you could catch 30 something pounds. It's possible there. Um, so
Right.
that's the reason I went. And of course, you know, I mean, I got my teeth kicked in both days over there, and we wound up finishing 10th. But I was fine with that because, you know, the way I look at it, dude, you ain't never. I mean, I ain't gonna say never because you can win when you know just by fluke type stuff sometimes. But most times, if you ain't trying to win, you're not gonna win. And you know, I haven't won nationally, obviously, but uh, nothing's gonna change on the way that I approach that situation. Like I probably, like I said, probably could have stayed and might would have finished, you know, 4 or 5 places higher in the event, but I really didn't care about that. Um, you know, yeah, I mean, it was a few $1,000s more, but you know, what's a few $1,000s versus $100,000 in a blue trophy? You know, because that's
Right.
really the end goal. You know, for anybody that's doing this. So, yeah, I didn't. You know, it didn't work out. I didn't catch them. Same, you know, same thing at St. John's. It didn't work out, but one day it will work out. I have faith in that. I've done it too many times. You know, living where I live around here. I mean, it's the stars, and you know, like you know, it did on day 3 at St. John's, and it very cool, you know, very well could have on day 4. And then I give Corey a run for his money. You know, if I catch another big bag like that, I'm at least gonna scare the hell out of him. You know, so I
Yeah.
mean and I knew I was around those kind of fish. You know, at the St. John's and at Apaca, but they just did not bite. It didn't materialize for me. They didn't bite, and that's part of it. You know, that's what you that's the game we play. But I don't have any regrets on that. Like I said, as far as you know, top 10, hey, it was good. I needed the Dagon points. You know, I mean, they got me some good points. Come out of there with good check. You know, and rode on to the next one. You know, at St. John's.
Yeah. So to go back on one of the things you mentioned about putting raptors down, you can catch 30 pounds, like in that instant.
Yeah.
When you're say whether you're in tournament mode or whatever it may be, this could be for any case, but when you're going into an area and you think it's high percentage, are you putting raptors down immediately or are you putting them down once you get bit? Like, are you going to
If
keep
I
moving until you get bit?
so that's a good question, really, and I don't know that I have the correct answer for it. In a practice mode, probably no. I probably don't put them down because I'm on high a lot of times until I get bit. But if I'm in a tournament mode, and especially if I have any history, and when I say history, I don't mean necessarily history with the area, but it could just be history with the type of vegetation that they've bit on the day before or 2 days before. You know what I mean? Like if I see something that's high percentage that I really feel like that's where I'm going to get bit, yeah, I'm going to drop them before I get there, and,
Yeah.
and and try to pick it apart. That's the whole thing. I'll put them down before I get there, and that's really which I'll let you lead into that. I'm not going to jump into the subject, but I mean that's what I did at St. John's.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one thing you'd hit on it earlier. Do you think that some guys might miss those small little areas like you're talking about where I can put my raptors down and I can flip a section for maybe it's 30 minutes or longer
Yeah,
and catch that big bag, or some guys might catch that one fish, make a couple flips, but they're still on the motor going down the bank and they might miss that whole window right there. You
right.
think that might be one of the bigger culprits for guys that might catch a big one, but then miss that? There might be that gem right there in that section.
It's yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, that's very, very possible. I mean, if you, and I notice I've watched people because I do a lot of like instructional stuff around here where I live at, and one of the things I try to teach like the kids and stuff that are doing this, one of the things I'll ask them when they get a bite, when they get bit, well, what did you notice? What was different? What made you get that bite? Why was that fish? The number one question is why was that fish there? And that's that. I think that's what people and a lot of them can't answer. They just got bit. They don't know. They don't know what it was. And that's where we go into the whole learning phase. And try to understand why that fish was set up like it was. And yeah, so I mean, I watched that happen obviously from the youth, trying to learn, and that's remember, I mean, that's what you do. You have to learn it. I mean, you don't just step out there and know that, uh, as far as instinctual fishing. But that's, that's a good question. And I think probably a lot of people do. They probably keep going, and they don't pay attention to that. Of why that fish was there. And it can all still be the same looking vegetation or cover or whatever it is that you're fishing. Like for example, at the St. John, like where I caught them on day 2, I didn't catch them on day 3. The fish moved on me. And I was actually, I said it on stage, I was actually leaving the area. Like I had the trolling motor on high. Uh, I mean, I was rolling out. And I literally said, good Lord, I said, if you don't show me one pretty quick, I said, I'm finna have to burn out of here because I'm not getting bit. And I kid you not, within 30 seconds, I catch one almost 6 pounds. And
That'll
when
do.
she ate it, huh?
So that'll do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when she ate it, I mean, I instantly dropped the wrappers, and I kid you not, I put her in a live well, and I stand up, and I don't make 2 casts, and I catch 8.5. And then I have one between 8 and 9. The very next cast jump over my jig. So I mean, it was like I had 31. I know this sounds crazy. People think, yeah, whatever. But I mean, and that's swim jig fishing 101. I mean, it happens. That's the way it is. But if everything would have actually bit that I saw that day, I mean, 40 ain't out of the question. I mean, there was that many big ones, in the
Sheesh.
area. Just
Yeah.
couldn't, they don't all bite. That's part of it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just you're not going to catch all of them. But
Real fast before you continue with that, Justin Largen, who's part of our podcast network here, as asking for that swim jig, are you steady retrieving that thing down in Florida? Or are you Alabama shaking it? It's a hybrid of both. What's your go to
Yeah,
with that?
yeah. So that's a different deal. I want you to imagine this because this is really the best way I think to describe that.
Okay.
I'm fishing that swim jig like you would fish a square bill. So if you think about a square bill, your object when you're around cover, let's say laydowns, docks, whatever it is that you're trying to do, uh, you're trying to deflect that square bill off of something to trigger that bite. You know, even if it's riprap, I mean, when you're cranking down riprap, I mean, you're getting a deflection and a reaction bite. And so, like you're talking about the high stick Alabama shake, keeping that bait high in the water column, which is what we do around here where I live 95% of the time. But that's not what I was doing in Florida. I was reeling it along at a pretty good clip, but the weather made me do that. And what I mean by that is it was slick. Like, dude, the wind didn't blow for 5 or 6 days. Like it was slick, slick, slick conditions, and I just felt like they were getting too good a look at it. Like say with a 3/8 or something,
Yeah.
or and so I went to a half ounce and just try to burn that bait through there. Where they either got to eat it or get out of the way. I mean that's their two options, and so that's really what I was doing with that though. I mean I was basically throwing a square bill. That's the mindset of how I was using it to get that bite off those stems. Is basically what I was doing.
That's pretty dang cool. That's probably gonna blow a couple people's minds in regards to throwing that swim jig because I think a lot of people look at a swim jig, and maybe it's just me. I could be overshadowed with it because I don't throw it all that often up here. But a lot of them are like, yeah, it's either you're shaking it or there's a little bit of the whole Mississippi River, you know, slow rolling it on bottom type of deal, but
Right.
there's not a lot of that, where you're talking where you bump into a reed clump and kill it type of deal, or it's
Yeah.
that's pretty
Yeah.
niche.
Yeah. It
That's cool.
was it was definitely a little bit different. And I've done that here where I live um, at times. At times I have. And in Florida, I'm sure what I call high stick and Alabama shake and whatever, keeping it high in the water column where it's a visual bite. Uh, that's a I'm sure that's a big thing in Florida as well. It just so happened that the way I was catching them this time, most of them, that's not how I was catching them. I was catching them. I was, I know, I had it coming along at a good clip. I mean, but I think, I don't think I know what made me do that. Like I said, was the weather. If I would have had uh, cloudiness or whatever, if I'd had, more power fishing conditions, I probably would not have been reeling it near as fast. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I really feel like probably would have actually tricked more of them. Got more of them to bite. Uh, but that just was wasn't the card we was dealt. And I've just learned that over the years. I mean, that's just power fishing 101. I mean, a lot of times you got to make them bite. And even with that said, you're still only going to get 1 out of 10 to actually eat it. Uh, when you're dealt those slick conditions or what I consider not great fishing conditions, you got to figure out a way to, if they're there and they're there, you got to figure out a way to trick some of them. And like that, where I was fishing, at St. John's, like I knew, would it have been great to catch 5 of them? Yeah, absolutely. But I knew, of those great big ones like that, I knew were there. But in reality, like you get 2 of those a day, you got you got a good bag, and that's what you're fishing for. I mean, you're trying to get 2 of those big ones, and then just figure your limit out with solid fish, whatever you can get to bite. But 2 7 8 pounders, whatever they go a long ways, and in a stringer.
No kidding. Yeah, especially in Florida.
Yeah.
Um, so to that point, I got one or two things on St. John's River because I think you covered it pretty well. And then we'll let you go here. But one of the more questions I have just in regard to general, flipping things like that is whether this is tournament or not. It could be in practice and you find a good area that you're catching them flipping, or it's fun fishing. You go one day and you catch them flipping in an area, and then the next day there's wind blowing on that exact spot pretty good.
Mhm. Mhm.
when you go, either you're going back to that to fish in a tournament or you're going to back, just to fish in general. Um, is it more cases than not that that's not gonna happen? Like, if you think it's manageable to fish, is it worth going to, or is that place pretty much dead because of that wind?
You know, I think that all depends on the cover that those fish are using and how long has that wind been blowing in there. Like, did that start at midnight? Has it been ripping in there for 6 hours? Uh, I mean, it, I know that's a simple question, but it's a broader question, really, too. I
Right.
mean, it's how long have you had those weather conditions? And like, for example, I'll just speak bushes, for example. Like if you're fishing bushes, flipping bushes. What I've learned over the years is those fish, in my opinion, don't like those bushes rubbing on them. And so
Mm.
if you've got waves crashing in it, uh, I think they pull out of them. Now I'm not going to say you can't catch them. You just may not be able to flip them. You might have
Right.
to you might have to pick up a spinner bait or a chatter bait or whatever it is that you want to throw. And then again, sometimes they just don't bite. I mean, that's just the reality of it. That they were flipping fish alone, like that's all they would eat. You couldn't catch them any other way, and they still remain that way even with the weather condition. They're just no longer in the bush. Um,
Yeah.
that's just my opinion on it. And a pad cluster is the same way. I mean, I feel like fish don't like stuff rubbing on them. That's just my opinion on that. I'm not saying that's the truth or whatever, but I think when them waves start crashing in and it starts moving all that stuff around, you could imagine if somebody was throwing phantom punches at you 24/7. Like if every time you turn, I mean, you just looking throwing phantom punches right and left. I mean, you ain't gonna sit there very long. You're fixing to move, or you're fixing to whoop
Yeah.
somebody. One of the two. I mean, you ain't gonna sit there and deal with that. So I mean, I feel like those fish are the same way. I mean, that it puts them on edge. They don't like it. So I think they move around. I think they get out of that stuff. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah. Well, and to that, I guess, to expand on that, like, say with bushes, you don't find that they're in there. Do you find more cases than not that they're going to be close by, or do you pretty much write off that area and go to somewhere that's not getting wind blown?
I'm gonna try. You know, I'm probably gonna pick up, like I said, a moving bait and try to fish the outer edge. But I won't spend a lot of time. I won't spend a lot of time on it because it seems like a lot of times that area just gets trashed and they just don't bite. I don't think I mean, they don't swim out of the country. I just think they just get out of that stuff and they just don't bite. You just can't catch them. Which is kind of similar to what happened to me at the Harris chain. Like I had a shad spawn area, which is in Kissimmee grass. I mean, they were spawning in it,
Right.
and I couldn't catch them. I mean, I just could not catch them. I mean, maybe I could have if it was my only spot and I had nothing else to go to. I might would have possibly figured it out. I don't know, but I had too many areas to run around, and and try to find something that wasn't getting trashed. And so I mean, a little wind is always good. Like you've heard the saying before, the wind's your friend. I mean, a little bit of wind is always good, but you get too much, I mean, and it'll track like that. If you're fishing offshore, I mean, if we're ledge fish, I mean, I love the ledge fish. I mean, I'm not just a shallow guy. I fish offshore all the time. I mean, but
Yeah.
like if you're ledge fishing, I mean, hell, I want all the wind I can get. The rougher the better. I mean, I think it stirs that bait up, and it makes them bite. Um, but not in that shallow cover. I don't like it for the most part. I'm probably gonna pack my bags and I'm gonna roll and try to find somewhere that's not getting trashed.
Yeah. Okay. So I got one last question for you on the flipping
All right.
deal, specifically towards what you were doing on St. John's River, and then I got one uh, at least a show ending question for you before we let you go here, and that is with the pads and things that you were seeing that you're talking about earlier on St. John's River. When you
Mm.
got a place like that that's got them in the canals, it's got them in these backwater ponds, and it's got them everywhere. what are you going to key in on? What is something like that when people just see pads for ages? You know, what is something that's like a telltale sign that stands out to you that these fish might key in on more when they have pads forever?
So in this situation of when we went down there this time, I think you kind of need to look for what you feel like, or because there were still some fish, obviously, and of course in the springs, I think they spawn a lot. Like it's almost dang near never ending. Um, but there's some fish, that are still spawning. But I probably feel like, let's just say, at least 65-70% of the fish had already spawned, and I know they spawn multiple times down there, but. Uh, I think you need to look for, me personally, when I went down there this time, I wasn't looking for spawners, which is why I got to, finish second and not first. I got the break speed off of it by Corey. But I was primarily looking for either, shad spawn eaters or brim eaters. And I looked for spawning areas where I felt like those fish had spawned recently. And then I look for, because those brim are going to spawn around those pad edges somewhere. Uh, and if you want to just know how to find them, uh, one thing, you can smell them spawning. But another thing, I mean, if you got the trolling motor on high or whatever, and you're just going out of bank literally on high, I mean, Mega 360 shows a broom bed plain as it gets.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, you really need to get your eyes checked if you can't see it on that. So, but I mean, that's really what I was keen on, and that's kind of what I look for. I look for those areas where I knew the fish had spawned. Um, and once we had a short practice there too, so that changes a lot of things. But I look for where the fish had, I felt like it spawned, and then I try to find, the nearest pad field around those areas and try it. Now, I mean, you're going to strike out on that a lot of times. I mean, it's not all good, but when you find the right one, I mean, you can get right in a hurry. It don't take long when you find them, because I mean, those brim eaters, that's exactly what they are. They're there to eat, and
Yeah.
that's uh that's what I was trying to find. I was trying to find fish that had spawned, were done spawning. Now that's not, obviously not what I do when I'm there in February. I'm fishing for spawners. Uh, but I'm not a sight guy either, too. I mean, I can catch a sight fish, obviously, just like anybody else, but it's not my deal. Like, I don't like it as much. I mean, I've caught a million fish off the bed that I couldn't see. I mean, I'm still
Right.
fishing for spawning fish. Um, I just I know obviously what I'm looking for and where I feel like that's where a bed should be. And of course, and you catch them, off the bed, but I can't see them. I mean,
Gotcha.
that's just me. I like to fish, which I come up in a dirty water situation. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I've bed fished, a lot in my life, but I've flipped dirty lakes all my life, and and you learn where, and it's no different. I don't care if you're in Florida or whatever. I mean, you learn where they spawn at, and we know what to look for, and then you just slow down. That's what you do. I mean, this sounds crazy, but I've done it on the St. John's before. I sat on an area one time at the St. John's and did well in the tournament. I was actually fishing reeds that time. Uh, Dude, I bet it wasn't 150. No, that's probably there. It's probably 250 yards long, and I fished it for 7 hours. Never left.
Sheesh. That's
For
awesome.
7 hours, and caught a pretty good bag, and should have had a really monster bag. Just had a couple things go wrong. But like literally, I mean, I'd pick the Raptors up, and I'm only picking them up like just till the fiberglass pole just barely just comes out of the ground, and just let the wind just carry me a few feet just to where I can reach what I couldn't reach flipping early, and then drop them again and pick it. Those are spawning fish. I can't see them. Uh, but when you find where they're coming to or whatever on an area like that, on something like that, I mean, you just slow down, take your time, when they're spawning. But when they're not spawning like this time, and that's why, I mean, I did a lot, the majority of my damage was done with a swim jig, with an epic swim jig. And that was the whole deal was, those fish were aggressive. We're in April. They're a lot more aggressive. They're not protecting anything. They're there to eat. They're there to eat brim. And so that's that's pretty much what I targeted this time.
Yeah, and I wanted to pick up one thing that you mentioned. I don't know if you meant this literally, and if you did, I'm about to lose my mind here. But you said you could smell the fish spawning?
You can smell brim spawning, yeah.
God,
Yeah,
that is I've never heard I've heard from like a saltwater sense, like you can smell and see like bait slicks. Like when
yeah,
you
oh
have
yeah,
big
you can see
bait.
you see oil slicks. Absolutely. You can do that offshore, largemouth. Uh,
That
now
is
it's
sick.
not as prevalent as it used to be, but let's say before everybody in the world learned how to use side imaging and, of course the phenomenal Lake Master that we have now. In other words, when the offshore stuff was only getting touched by your real old, your old OGs. Like I'm talking about the old dudes on the lake.
Yeah.
Like they knew where that offshore stuff was. Probably helped most of them seen the lake built. I mean, they were old dudes, or they had old paper maps of, of what the lake was like before it was built. So, they knew those old spots before you had side imaging and all that kind of stuff. And I, even I myself remember, uh, with that being said, I mean, I can still remember the days of when I've seen those, when offshore fishing was just getting started. I remember seeing those oil slicks, and it's shad slicks. I mean, in other words, they're gorging on those shads so much that there is literally oil on top of the water. And when you
That's
saw that, it was game over. I mean, I'm talking about pull the split rings off the crankbait. I mean, it's stupid, but the brim, like I said, yes, you can smell the brim too, when you get in certain areas that and the wind's right. I mean, hell, it ain't no different than deer hunting. You smell a rutting buck. Anybody
oh yeah.
spending time in the woods hunting, you can smell that buck,
Yeah.
so, but that's just being in nature, spending time in the outdoors. You learn, pick up on all kinds of things.
That's freaking cool. I can't say I mean I may have experienced it, but it had never like hit me. But
Right.
that's something I'm gonna look out for now is I'm gonna see some brim spawn and I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna start sniffing around now. I mean like
They
you
start
guys gotta
sniffing
smell.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, get
That's pretty
downwind of
cool.
them. Get downwind of it and see if you can start to smell it. But that's the truth. I mean, and like you talking about with the slicks offshore, but I mean it's the same thing with ledge fishing. I mean, dude, I've seen them. I've seen those largemouth feed on those shads so heavy that there is literally a film on top of the water of the oil, that comes out of the shad. I guess from just destroying them. But I
That's
hadn't
wicked.
seen that in a long time. Because those fish are smart now.
Yeah.
They've been pounded on for years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did. I saw it years ago. Sure did.
That's freaking cool, man. Well, man, I got one last question for you to wrap the
Okay.
show up. Similar to how we led this thing off, we like to wrap it up. Anybody that's new to the show with this question, and that is, if you could choose three individuals, they don't have to be in the fishing industry. They could be alive now or alive 1,000 years ago. Doesn't matter. It can be anybody. Three different people that you would love to sit down, have a steak, have a beer, and pick their brain. Who are you gonna choose?
Three different people. Uh, I'd probably take Tom Brady. I'd like to sit down and talk to him, see how he stayed so strong for so long, dominant. Um, I've never actually got to sit down with Kevin, so I'd like to sit down with Van Dam, talk to him,
All right.
and then probably man, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of somebody else, something that's not really even in the industry. Uh, maybe let's see, you probably don't know what I'm talking about when I say this, but probably General Patton from World War II. I'd probably like to talk to that dude.
Oh,
Maybe
that's probably one of the coolest answers we've ever gotten on the show.
I mean, he's stone cold killer, so I'd probably like to talk to that dude just to see his
He's
mindset.
probably
I
got
mean,
some stories for you.
oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
Well, that's cool, man. As we wrap this up, I guess one last thing. Give folks like if your go-to flipping setup for something like that. If you had one rod, reel, line, bait, everything that you could go to flip anywhere in the country, what you gonna pick up?
I've actually got a rod that I designed for Castaway, and it's a 7.3 heavy, and it's really kind of an all-purpose rod because I get asked that question a lot, especially from kids. Like, man, what rod do I need? And I think you take that 7.3 Castaway heavy, and you can do pretty much anything with it. I mean, I flip with it, I frog with it, I swim jig with it. I actually built it for swim jigging and frogging. But I probably take that rod, and I would take like a 5/16 weight with a bass sass and a little skunk ape, which is just a little glide type flipping bait. And then if it allows, 50-pound braid with I don't have any, like, I'm not sponsored by like a reel company or nothing, but people ask all the time, what's the best reel for the money? In my opinion, I mean, you can get an SLX for $99, dude. I think that's a great reel.
Hell yeah, bro. That's awesome. Well, dude, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time out and hopping on here. Definitely want to get you back on here again soon because I think we have many tangents that we can go on that we need to go on on the show.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I love to talk. So anytime you need somebody to talk, just give me a shout.
Heck yeah, man. Well, appreciate it. And great job on the Florida swing. We'll be rooting for you to keep that going on Murray here in a couple weeks. And we'll be talking to you again real soon.
All right, man. I appreciate you having me.
All right. We'll see you, Brad. There you have it, folks. Mr. Brad Whatley, the best handlebar in fishing. But super cool. A lot of really good tips there. And I don't know. I would love to hear from you guys, especially that are tuning in here. Have you ever smelled brim spawning? That was one of the coolest things that I took from that. But a lot of nuggets in there, a lot of things to learn from, especially in an age where we're talking about, lines getting lighter, baits are getting more finesse. Talking about a guy that's getting it done with big line, doing it his way and having fun with it. And that's freaking cool. And that's something we really wanted to shine on this show. And I know these next two guys that we're going to bring on in part 2 are also big fans of big line, power fishing it, and doing it their way. We're going to get them on here in a second, but thank you again to Mr. Brad Whatley. We're definitely going to be getting him back on here several more times down the road here for some different shows. And I think that just screams we need to get him on the Lure Lab as well. I know Andy is in the comments as well still, but that was a heck of a fun show. Make sure you guys follow Brad on his socials. We got that all linked down below. Make sure you guys tune in to stuff he's doing. Great 2 events in the Florida swing, which is very hard to do, I feel like, consistently. Very seldom guys are able to do that. So cool to see him do it, and hopefully he can keep it rolling into Lake Murray. But the show is not over. We still have our part 2 here. We got Mr. Drew Gregory and Justin Largent here that are going to be joining us. But we'll be back with them here after a quick break and message from X2 Power.
In the world of battery power, a word to the wise: compromise elsewhere.
Oh, here we go. Was on the wrong setting there. We are back. We are back with the boys here. We got Mr. Drew Gregory down below. We got the man, Mr. Kayak Fishing Weekly, Mr. Justin Largent. What's going on, boys?
Hey, where's your
What?
Where's your brown paper bag?
I did a little bit better in fantasy this week, so I don't feel like I need it quite as much. I did bring sunglasses in case I get sleepy and need to take a little nap without anybody noticing.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. You did well with the paper bag. I think you got to keep it rolling.
You did, yeah. You got to keep it rolling. So
that's a fair point. I definitely did better. Although I don't know how you could do worse than 527 or whatever it was. I mean, it
still could. I wouldn't say that just yet.
Yeah,
but
how many points?
Just draw a smiley face on it. Happy paper bag this week, and then just try to keep the luck rolling.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's not a bad idea. Although it was not very comfortable. It was not very comfortable.
Were you over 1,000?
I can't imagine it was, but the people loved it, and you got to get the people what they want.
Yeah, give them what they want. You went over 1,000 this time, Justin. I guess, or near there.
I think I was right around there. I think.
Nice.
I definitely I was middle of the pack, so which is like winning for me. So
yeah, I snuck in.
It was another bad week for me, unfortunately, but it's okay. It was a long
I did
season.
pretty good.
We
Around
needed Brad
1100.
on our team.
11 something for me. Yeah, you for sure you needed that guy. I snuck Matt Airy in there because I know I've fished Salt Springs before. That's where I take my family and vacation to like just see manatees and chill right there. It's right near this house we stay at. That's a good friend of mine, Dustin Hoy, who owns Raccoon Creek Outfitters. And I've seen giants all in there. So, and I know I've talked to him since I'm friends with him, and we've talked about that area, and I've seen him fishing in the past. So I had a feeling he might try it, and I'm glad I picked him. He did pretty good. So pretty good week. But anyway,
Were you one of the
boys,
party boats back there in Salt Springs?
yeah, well, in February, believe it or not, it's actually really cool. When we go in January, February, usually like after Christmas or February, there's hardly anybody there because it's the highs are in the like 60s, usually upper 60s. Maybe you get some 70s. You get lucky, you could definitely get an 80-degree day in February, but no one's really out there like in the water yet. So it's perfect. Get a chill, and we don't mind getting in a little bit, seeing the manatees and without all the party. But I ran into a guy one time that was like, there's giants in here. He was practicing for a Toyota. And ever since then, whenever I go there, I'm just always looking around, just checking them out. So it's a cool spot. So,
well, dude, I think you're going to need a bigger room.
Yeah. This is, well, I'm going to be handing out more trophies this year than I will be receiving, even though I won a couple, obviously like some nice ones here, but I'm going to be handing out more at the Kayak Adventure Series. So that's good. I need to get rid of some here, make some room in this spot for sure. Good problem to have. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, dude. I think with that, before we get into a little fish it, box it, or trash it, I think we got to bring this up here. Let me get the screen layout here. We're no captain here. I'm trying to do my best to pull this up while also have fill in the dead space for sound anyway. But
there you
let's
go.
talk a little bit about Shoalapalooza, man. First event's coming up quick, May 3rd.
It's coming up. I think we got around, I want to say 50 something unique individuals between the individual division and the team division, because you can fish either one, the 2-man team, which presented by X2 Power. Everyone get that how we did that? Times 2. So at the 2-man team division, it was just perfect. It made sense. So X2 Power team division there, the individual, I think we have over 43 in the individual division. So we're hoping, kayak anglers are, guys, come on. We know they all are going to sign up the week of the event. So having this many right now is pretty good. So I'm hoping to get over 100, 150, who knows, 200. We'll see. It's going to be a blast. You're going to catch a shoal bass. I'll tell you that. Your very first shoal bass for you guys out there wanting to catch that bucket list fish. And they get big. I've caught one 24 1/4. Couple, that one was 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Caught another one that big. They're giants. They are 1B, in my opinion, right there with smallmouth. If I'm ordering the black bass, it's definitely smallies, shoalies, largemouth, Alabama bass, whatever else. But anyway, come
like
catch a shoal bass. Yeah.
Ordering for dinner or?
Yeah. Well, you will order up a shoal bass. I know if you come there, trust me, this is the time of the year to be there. And, it's just your typical kayak fishing tournaments, except for we have a unique festival going on. You can see all this stuff there with food, music, games, kayak demos, Toyota truck demos, seminars on Friday. You also got another cool thing that's going to be happening there is your awards are held at these historic theaters. So we're going to be there in the theater showing off footage, pictures and videos of your catches. So it's pretty cool that we can, really quickly get some awesome footage together of the anglers. I got a crew out there filming, plus any of you guys filming yourselves. You submit your footage through the website, just trim it down to that 30 seconds, that minute we want to see, and boom, on the big screen in the theater, stadium seating, food, drinks, a real stage with cool lighting to be on for your photos. So it's going to be pretty cool event, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't wait to see everyone out there. We got tons of huge names coming to this thing. I mean, if I start spilling them all out, I'm going to miss somebody, but there are a ton. I mean, Alex Rudd, he's, on our X2 team as well. He's going to be emceeing on stage with me. Mr. Fluke Master Jensen, John Dalton from Creek Fishing. What'd you say?
You said Rudd. I'm like, who?
Yeah. Who's that guy?
I don't know who that is.
So it's going to be fun raising money for the Punt Foundation for pediatric cancer. And it's just it's getting wild, man. I don't think you guys realize yet, everyone doesn't realize like what all is about to happen with this thing. UBCO, the bike company, UBCO, you guys can go check them out. They just committed to one of their cool e-bikes to, actually donate for the Angler of the Year prize. So it's like a $5,000 e-bike. It's actually more like a little motorcycle than an e-bike. So that'd be pretty cool. And just, it's growing every day, man. It's crazy. So we'll see you guys out there. I'm looking forward to it. And the next one's in Michigan. Then we go over to Missouri, and then the Susquehanna in Pennsylvania, the Wisconsin River for the Wisconsin River Fest, and wrap up in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I'm excited, nervous. We sent out a press release today. Bailey, you send out press releases every day. And I've done it, before. My master's degree, my internship was for Fox Sports in Atlanta, and I wrote press releases, right, for Fox Sports. It's been a long time since I kind of crafted one. And anyway, when you're about to hit send, tell me that's not the most nervous thing, Bailey. You know what I mean? Like, you read it 5 more times. Yeah, you sweat. You read it over another 5 times. You look at like and you're like, all right, it's out there now. So
I understand 100% what you go through, because I send it to my team. I send it to my boss. I check it 4,000 times. They triple check it. And then you still panic when you hit the send button. You're like, what did I mess up? Because I'll say I've messed up before. I've put the wrong damn year on a press release before. It's like, you sent out one in 2023. Well, hey, bro, you didn't release this in 2022. You might want to, update that. It's the fun industry side. At the end of the day, I don't think people care all that much, but it's the little things that, because you're a perfectionist, Drew, where it's one of those things where it's like any one thing goes wrong and you freak out. But either way, dude, I am pretty dang bummed that I can't make the event. I really wish I could make it down there for it, because one, shoal bass sounds freaking fun as hell.
Oh yeah.
But also the environment that you're putting together is pretty dang cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
I know Justin's probably pretty bummed too that he can't attend.
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe you make one of the others. I mean,
definitely gonna try.
There's 5 more, so maybe you make one of the others. If you guys are interested in winning or trying to go for AOY, you just got to fish 2 of those 5 regular season events, and that score gets combined with the finale score. So at Bowling Green, Kentucky. So it's not that many. You know what I mean? And the first 100 anglers get $100 prize bag from the sponsor. So it's kind of like you can't lose. It's a low cost of entry, $75 a piece for the team, $150 for individual. And if we get 150 people paying out $7,000 to that winner. So it's not crazy, if you enter the team and the individual and maybe one of the sort of like joint events with the local club, someone's going to be walking away. It's, some of these events potentially with like 5 figures. So it still can be quite a bit of cash and prizes as well. So it'll be fun. And I can't wait to see what happens after this first one and just keep the momentum going. 2025 schedule is done, except for one event. The contracts are signed by tourism. We are ahead of the game. And I can't wait to announce those locations, because as long as you guys out there keep trusting us and coming to these events, which I'm saying we haven't even started yet, but assuming you do, right? Otherwise, I'm going to have to go to a lot of tourism departments and say, sorry, no one shows up to these things. But assuming you guys do, which the signups are really good and everything's positive, there's a lot of buzz. I just want you guys to trust me, because this is the Kayak Adventure Series. And trust me, it's worth it to drive an extra 2 or 3 hours to some of these places that are further away and just live. Like, how many times do you live, Justin, Bailey? Like, how many times do you get?
I don't know.
This is not a trick question. Justin, whatever Justin's figured out in this life. He says 2.
Show me the secrets of 2 lives, Justin.
2. I went 2.
Isn't that how the song goes? You only live twice. The Bond song. Isn't that
yeah, James Bond. Yeah, that's true. But anyway, so let's go. Let's adventure. I'm taking you guys to the best places in the country. Like a fishing guide will take you to the best spots on the lake. I've been blessed to fish all over the country. Obviously, you can see behind me all, my successes have happened anywhere and everywhere on this country, every corner of it. And that's because I'm older than I look. Trust me. And the energy I have, I'm older. Okay. I've been around. I didn't get married till I was 35. So all I did was fish and travel, and I fished everywhere. So I'm literally just, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them catch their PB, you know what I mean? Or can't make them, drink, whatever. I'm taking you guys to the coolest, most unique hidden places in this country that I know you will no doubt have a good time and catch a lot of fish. Now, can't guarantee you're going to, get everyone on the boat or catch the big fish or win the tournament, but that's not so much why you come to these events. It's for the fellowship, the fun, and the whole atmosphere and the format that we've kind of put together, which is really highlighting the diversity of the kayak and each one of us and all of our setups, which is cool because, Bailey and I do it so much different. Well, Justin and I do it similarly, and Bailey does it different. And we want to really highlight everybody's style. So we got lakes and bounds, rivers and bounds, creeks and bounds. It's cool. But anyway, enough of that. You guys, you go sign up kayakadventureseries.com and you will not regret it. Not one person coming to these events will ever regret this. So I am giving it my all with my team, which can't do it by myself. They're awesome. They're kicking butt, and I can't wait to get it started. Shoaly-Palooza, let's go.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, so before we go ahead, Justin.
Are we going to have to dodge wake boats and jet skis and the big bass boats out there on the Flint River?
Well, on the Flint River, of course not, man. Of course not. They don't. They can't go in those rapids.
I'm bringing my pontoon.
Now we do have 2 lakes and bounds, like Juliet. Yeah, Bailey's gonna be out there in this little 200 yard section of a pool they can launch it in. He's backing it through the woods, crashing in. But Lake Juliet and Lake High Falls Lake, they're not big party boat lakes. They're more, fishing lakes anyway. So you're not going to see a bunch of that there. So it's cool. We got some good options, man. Good options for everybody. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. 5 fish over 2 days, so anything can happen. I mean, anything can happen. So
yeah, dude. Well, what do you think is the last question before we get into some fishing box at Trash It? What do you think is going to be the biggest shoal bass taken out of the event?
Well, we just posted this on our Kayak Adventure Series Instagram and Facebook. A guy just posted a 21 1/4. And like I said, I've caught him 24 1/4. And I mean, I've had many days in the spring where you'll catch over 100 inches with 5 shoal bass, just shoal bass. Like, forget the fact that you could definitely catch a big largemouth in these slower sections where the largemouth tend to hang out. So I think you're going to see one hit 22 or over 22 somewhere in there, a shoal bass. And then, we'll just have to see what we've got. Some cool century belts we have ready to give out if anyone hits that 100-inch mark. It's definitely doable. And the cool thing about the shoal bass, which you'll learn if you come to the seminars, the Bass U brunch on Friday morning is our seminar series from 10 to 12:30. There's 4 different seminars, a lot of fisheries biologists, myself and Jeff Little, Gene Jensen, a YouTuber panel with all those guys that are coming. That'll help you with your social media, but anyway, they're like 30, 40 minute seminars, like 40 minutes. But they will tell you the coolest fact that I got to always repeat about the shoal bass is there is no sexual dimorphism in that black bass species. And what that means, I know what does that mean, Drew? You're speaking like another language. Sexual dimorphism is when the female, as you guys know, in largemouth and smallmouth and Alabama spot, the females are the ones that get big, right? So that's kind of in a tournament. That's what we're targeting. Let's face it. We're really targeting the adult females. That's what we want. That's what Brad Whatley's catching over there, right? He's in that stretch he was just talking about. He's getting the female. That's what we all want in a tournament, the big ones. But only 25% of the population is female and adult, right? That would matter. It would really help you, like 3 pounds and up, let's say. Shoal bass, it's not true. That's sexual dimorphism, the one where one sex gets, much larger or smaller, whatever, than the other. Shoal bass don't have that, which is very unique because when you go out there in the spring, especially when they're easy to catch, you're going to catch, let's say you catch 30 or 40. Let's say you catch 40 shoal bass. 20 of those shoal bass will be basically 3 pounds and up because of that. I promise you, if you go and catch 40 fish, which is very likely to catch, 30, 40, 50, 60 in a day down there, like half of them are going to be big. And I've had days where I've caught around, I think my best was like 10 over 4 pounds in one day. So we're talking like all over 19 inches. I mean, it's because there's no sexual dimorphism because they all get, the males get basically just as big as the females. Maybe not so much in weight, but length they do. But weight, the females will kind of always be a little bit bigger just because the eggs. But yeah, it's a cool fish, man. Definitely one to come check out.
That's pretty no idea.
Yeah. I didn't even know what that meant. I thought my channel was going to get demonetized for whatever words you were just throwing out there, but that sounds pretty dang cool.
Yeah, well, You'll learn more. Come listen to Dr. Salmon's talk, and you'll be blown away by this fish. That's for sure. So we'll
Heck
see you
yeah,
at
dude.
Shoaly Palooza. All those who
Yeah.
come.
Heck yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to content that comes from it. And again, I'm bummed we can't make it, but I know it's going to be a success for what you're putting together, which
Yeah.
definitely sounds like a bigger ROI from a tournament perspective
Yeah.
for a lot of anglers than any other trail that's out there right now.
Be incredible. Hey, are you guys fishing Gunnersville, by the way, Bassmaster? Because I will be at that one. So I'll see you guys. Justin is. All right. I'll see you there. Grab dinner or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
shall we get into some fish it, box it, or trash it, fellas?
Let's do it. I think I've seen this segment once. You told me about it, but I might have to refresh me. I don't know what I just got myself into, but I'll figure it out.
I've never played, but I've watched it.
So basically, how it works, we've been doing it since I think it was our first show of 2024. This was our first like fun segment since we changed the show up a little bit in regard to having the 2 parts. Having like the nitty gritty, get down to detail, learning that bluegill apparently smell with Brad Whatley.
Yeah.
On part 1, and then part 2s have been we're gonna be having some fun. We're still gonna learn some stuff, talk fishing,
right,
but we're gonna have some fun with it because people love the not so serious side of serious anglers. So this is where that kind of comes into. But essentially, fish it, box it, trash it. I'm gonna list off 3 different things, and I'm gonna join in with you guys today. It's usually Andy, but obviously Andy's not here tonight. 3 different things, and you can fish one, meaning like that's your hero of the 3. You're gonna box one, meaning that's like second, and then you got to trash the other. So meaning that's the lowest in the totem pole.
Oh, got it.
Okay, does that make sense?
That's Mary Kill, basically.
Yes,
Okay.
it's exactly that. But I didn't want to say it out loud. But people that know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, we're live, and it's all it's 10 o'clock, man. Kids are in bed.
Yeah. Well, hey, you never know. I've gotten some messages of guys when we do they played the not so serious like on our episode 300 or 200 with their kids in the car on the way.
Yeah, woo, those
that wasn't very good.
If Drunkwood's ever involved, then yeah, it's got to be a midnight show.
Well, after episode 200, we made sure to preface on the not so serious shows that, hey, if you're listening to this with kids, probably should save it for later. So we've learned our lesson. But let's kick it off with an obvious one. We have 3 kayak anglers on here. Pedal, paddle, or motor. We'll lead off with you, Drew.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, this is. Whoo. All right. This is okay. I know. Man, I know I will trash the pedal just because I don't use pedal drives and so obviously it's nothing against pedal drives. I just don't ever use them, never have, and it's also just one of those things that the few times I've been in them, I just don't like that my knees are always getting pulled up into my, like my arms where I'm trying to work and stuff. I don't like that motion. It just doesn't work for me. And it's probably one of those can't teach an old dog new tricks sort of things. I've been paddling all my life. You know what I mean? Whitewater kayaking, paddling. It's just second nature for me, and I just prefer it. So I'll do that for the trash. And then the tough one is definitely the motor and paddle because, and I think if you take tournaments out of it, I guess, I don't know if we're supposed to be considering like if we're doing this in a tournament or not. Is there a rule to that, or is it just we make up our own rule? Like,
in general. Just
in general, I would say I'll go with the keep the motor in the box or whatever you want to say. But then what was the first one? It's called
fish it.
Fish it. All right, fish it is the paddle, and here's why. There's no like mechanical things that could ever go wrong and break. It's the simplicity on why I got into kayak fishing, and so putting in it. What's cool about the kayak is you can put in wherever, that's public. So all around a lake, river, wherever. So you're kind of putting in pretty darn close to where you're going to fish. You're not making some long run. It's a little different in tournaments, potentially if we got designated launches, but the paddle, it rarely, if ever, will break. There's no, moving parts. It just takes it back to the simplicity that is kayak fishing and that I love. But man, that was a tough one because the Torpedo has changed the game for sure, because it can, can't go literally as shallow or everywhere that the paddle can get you. But because I have that innovative Sportsman rock guard, I can go pretty darn shallow. And I figured that out on 10 killer how shallow I could. So it can pretty much get you there, and the extra speed it's going to give you to be able to just milk run to certain places. But I still use my paddle even with the motor. A draw stroke to pull you directly sideways. Motor can't do that. It can't get you in position to do things. So I never, do not have a paddle. Whether it's just the only thing I'm using that day or with the motor, I'm still using it. But anyway, that's my decision, and hit the gavel. That's it. Final.
I don't know what the hell a draw stroke is, but we're going to turn it over to Justin. This is why you're the GOAT, Drew.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me too, because I feel like I like all three of them. Each has like its time and place. But I think the one that I'm going to have to fish is the motor. I've definitely used a motor the least of the three, but it's opened up more water for me, a lot more water. I find myself going further. I'm not fatigued when I get there, and then I feel like I can fish better. There's always like that I don't know if temptation's the right word, or like I'll find myself sometimes running too much with it. But as a general rule, I'd rather have the option and be able to get more places with that motor. And I think I'm going to be like Drew and trash the pedal drive, which is hard for me to say, because I think I fished out of a paddle kayak only for probably 10 years, maybe a little more than that. And I hated the wind. I still hate the wind. And when I got the pedal drive, like it sort of fixed the wind problem for me, where I could actually keep the rod in my hand and have those pedals. But I still feel like the paddle is more versatile. Like there's situations where you can't use the pedal drive. As much as I like my Mirage drive on my Outback, like there's certain places I just can't use it, especially if I get in some super thick grass. I can slide over it with the paddle. And then you get wedged up into something, you get blown into some cover. It's like I'm always taking the paddle out and pushing off stuff. I just feel like it's like I never am out there without a paddle. But I'll find a lot of trips, especially now that I have a motor, where I don't use the motor or don't use the pedal drive at all. So,
yeah. All right. I'm conflicted on this one. When I put it on there, I thought it'd be like a simple, like we could riddle through this, but like after thinking about it further, it's actually a little more complicated. Part of me wants to trash the motor. From the pure sake, if we're talking tournaments, I feel like my only advantage I ever had was these dang tree trunks from a pedal standpoint.
I agree.
If Rudd was on here, he would tell you about time on Chick when I put the PA on plane and burned everybody. But like that was the only advantage I have ever had when it came to kayak fishing.
Yeah.
But also to your point, Justin, like the motor's just clutch. But I'm gonna actually trash the paddle, because I have horrible shoulders and I absolutely hate paddling.
It's cool. We all have three different answers. I love it.
Well, it's the point of this game is you hope that it's all different. But I'm going to trash the pedal. I'm going to box the motor, and I'm going to fish the pedal drive.
Yeah.
See, I was the one dingus this past weekend. Dingus or whatever. I don't know what you want to call it, but I was it was blowing 20-30 miles an hour, and I was one of the few psychos on the side of the lake that it was blowing on, because that's where the bite was happening. It's springtime wind, like that's when the fish was freaking chew. And there's a couple guys that were over there all had spot lock. Well, I have the Torpedo, and I'm too lazy to lock the motor down. And so when I don't have that, it's just knocking on the back of the kayak, and it annoys me. So I keep the motor up, so it's sitting in the back. So I'm just pedaling the whole time, with everything on there. But yeah, I'm gonna fish the pedal. But.
Nice. I forgot about these comments. I just pulled the comments up, and I just want to say, Sean Lai, dude, he's on every show, watching all the time, and kudos to that guy. I feel like he is literally AI. Like if we could take all the information he knows from listening to every possible podcast, that he's on everything, man, and just input it to his brain, he spits out the correct answer. You should be throwing a black and blue jig with a dude. He's on all the time. So shout out to that guy, man.
AI is in his last name, so maybe it's code. Maybe he is AI.
That's true. We're on to something here.
Well,
But,
Drew, I saw you added something in the queue here. Is this something you want me to put?
Oh
in there?
yeah, it's a draw stroke. If you want to see it, it just shows it like clear. I could zoom right to the spot. It's basically for, let's talk bass boat terminology.
Who is that guy?
Sea brakes and a trolling motor on the bow can move. There it is. It just draws you completely sideways. That's it. Get you in
That's too rich
position.
for my blood.
And I've heard bass boat anglers talking about it's too rich. It's a paddle, dude. You're talking about it doesn't even cost anything. I've heard bass boat guys talking about, oh, dude, it's amazing. You know, with the sea brakes and the motors in the back, whatever, and the trolling motor in the front, they're like, we can move just completely like sideways and do all kinds of stuff. That there are times you don't want to move forward, and you got to kind of move forward to move to the right or left. You know what I mean? And you don't want to go forward. And that was a spot there, which, you know, you guys can go watch that video. It's on my YouTube where I catch like a 20 and a something inch smallie. And if I would have gone forward there with that paddle stroke, you know, most people think to turn right, you got to paddle on the left side, right? Well, now you've moved forward. And instead I did the draw, the draw stroke and just went directly and caught that fish because of it and didn't blow him up. But anyway.
You know, my solution to that is called a 360 drive.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 360 drive. It will go that way, except for spin around, a lot longer. But the newer version, the new cool kids, you guys just flip that 360 into whatever direction that would be. 90, I guess. I don't know. 90 or 180. Is it one? No, I don't know. I don't know how that thing works. I just know it can go directly sideways.
Side would be 90.
Yeah,
I think.
So there you go.
Or
90
I gotta have.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I gotta have some speed built up with the Outback to go that way.
Yeah, it's true.
Dude, no,
it's hard to do it from a stop. It's hard to do it from a stop.
You can pull any boat. You're just pulling water towards you, and you go.
Yeah, with the paddle. Sorry.
Oh,
without
the
paddle, I can't. Yeah.
There's so many times at Norman, Justin, because I had the Outback for that event, that I went down to go adjust my 360, and I was like, oh, there's nothing here. I kept going to make the motion. I'm like, oh, this doesn't have that.
That's part of why I don't want to get in somebody's 360, because I don't want to like start realizing what it is and appreciate it, and then go back to my Outback and not have it and miss it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though, I might be doubling up on. I might be looking into a trailer at some point and getting an Outback and taking both, because that's a fun little.
Oh, that's a good idea. I think it's a great idea, Bailey. So it's fast.
Yeah. Well, all right. Next one we have YouTube/TV, podcasts, or magazines.
Oh, that's easy.
From a fishing sense. Let's put it in the fishing sense.
Yeah, I'm going. Well, you got someone else want to go
let's
first?
Go same order. Same order.
Same order. Okay, all right, same order. I'll go. Trash. I'll trash the magazine because I don't read much on the.
You're the old guy. You're supposed to fish
anymore. Come on, man. Not old. Not that old. I'm getting older, but you know, I did get my Bassmaster today, and I quickly did the old flip through. But yeah, I'm definitely going to trash that one just because I'm driving a lot. I'm mowing the yard. I got, I fall asleep. My wife's got the sound machine she puts on, like the kids have, the one that the white noise, it's just like chaos. Well, yeah. Okay. So I listen to a podcast to fall asleep, and it helps my brain not think about stuff, I got to do the next day. So anyway, podcasts are pretty big for me. So I'm actually going to say the YouTube would be the middle one, which is I'll keep it. Definitely do a lot of that stuff too. But the podcasts, I'm just always listening to them at some point. Driving on the road, we got these long road trips, mowing the yard, whatever, going to sleep with them. So I'm doing that. And occasionally I'll even tune into a live stream here on Serious Angler, catch up with you boys. So I went live and not have to listen to it on the audio later. So anyway.
Well, you could go back and listen to yourself on the podcast.
Well, that's the worst. Yeah. That is the worst.
I can tell you guys, I have never in the 450 episodes that we have done on this show ever gone back and listened to them. No. I've made sure the audio is good, and that is it. That is the extent of it. I hate hearing my voice.
Yeah,
I got to do a Bass University, like technically it wasn't a seminar, but like a segment once. So cool. But I still haven't gone back and listened to it because I just
yeah. I agree, man. Like they
don't
told
like
me
hearing me. Not good.
Yeah. Bass U was like, they were like, oh, dude, their seminar is doing good. Jig fishing seminar is doing great. It's been crushing it. And I was like, sweet, man, because I never listened to it either. Like, I lived it. You lived it. Why do we have to go back and listen to it? And everyone hates the way their voice sounds, like Bailey's saying.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, cool, man. I guess it said some good stuff. I don't know. It's like you just sort of forget it. Don't want to go back and listen. So
I was all hopped up on coffee, and I'm like, "There's no way it was good. I know it was bad. Like in my head, it was bad, so I don't want to hear it."
Yeah. All right, Justin, you're up.
it's not true.
Yeah, I think I'm going to copy Drew exactly, and for some of the same reasons. I hate to say it because Bassmaster Magazine was at one time that was the thing that taught me more about fishing than anything, like other than actually being on the water. Like that was my book learning for bass fishing growing up. But it just isn't anymore. Like it's a different world, and to me, the YouTube is like watching the videos on YouTube. It's just you can see stuff, you can pick up on stuff. I feel like there's less room for error. Like you can actually watch, you can watch Bass Live and see exactly what these guys are doing, exactly the technique. I feel like it's better. And I'll still look at the pictures in Bassmaster, but I don't read it very much.
Look at the pictures. Are you hiding under your bed, dude?
It's like, oh, look at that big fish. but so trash in the magazine, but it's tough for me to pick a winner between the podcasts and YouTube, because I feel like a lot of times, like the content that I'm consuming is on both media. That's the right way to say it. So I'm like, if I'm not doing anything, I'm not busy, and I'm home, I can sit there and watch the content. But more often than not, I feel like, whether it's on the way to work or driving to a tournament, you've got hours and hours, and that helps me stay focused driving. And it's kind of like killing two birds with one stone. So I probably got to lean podcasts one and then YouTube two. But yeah, sorry to copy Drew.
Yeah,
He's pissed.
it's all good.
I'm also gonna trash magazines. I don't really have a good explanation beyond what you guys have already said, but I'm going to. Like you guys mentioned, it's a tight race between YouTube / TV and podcasts. But I'm actually gonna box podcasts, and I'm gonna fish YouTube, because I actually do. I watch a lot of YouTube from a educational sense, not even fishing wise, from like YouTube podcast content to other things, business endeavors that I'm doing on the side. But also there's a laundry list of channels that I just thoroughly enjoy watching, fishing or not. There's a bunch of hunting channels, there's fishing channels, stuff that literally I can, with my coffee, it's kind of like a morning ritual where it's get up at 5 a.m, do the stretching and stuff and get your coffee, and I'm watching a video or two. And by the time 5:30 or so hits, I'm working for the day. And if I'm editing, I might have another show running on the side of that too. But I don't know. I love the YouTube side, so I'm going to fish YouTube.
Yeah.
Are you saying there's more content on YouTube than fishing? Like it's not just
Yeah. That exists? Wow.
Wait, what?
So actually, fun fact on that. I've been, like a little kid, I've been a subscriber of Mr. Beast for such a long time. And he does like crazy stuff where he literally be like, hey, if you throw, like, I'm trying to even think of a good example, but he gave this kid, he showed up this random kid that was a subscriber. They pick a random subscriber. They show up to his house like, hey, you won 40 cars. And it's like, but there's like this brand new, like badass, Tesla. He goes, you can get this Tesla if you give away 40 of these cars. And so he has to pick like 40 friends and family. If he can do it in like 20 hours, he gets the Tesla. Like it's just crazy stuff like that at first you're like, wait, that sounds really dumb. But at the same point, you're like, you're just drawn to it. You can't stop watching it. And so my wife and I have been having a habit of like, we have dinner, we sit on the couch and we watch Mr. Beast videos and we talk about our day, catch up. But yeah, man, I don't know. Something about that.
I mean, it's the world's biggest search engine, man. You can learn everything, see how it's done. I mean,
yep.
But It's a good answer. I can't argue with that, Bailey. That's a good one.
How
All right.
to hide a body.
Yeah, I'm sure it's out there, dude. I'm sure it's there.
How to make wife happy.
I don't think that exists. I don't think that exists. All right,
But there's somebody trying to teach it.
there is
It
100%.
definitely. Yeah.
All right, next one is milkshake, root beer float, or sweet tea.
Ooh.
Milkshake, root beer float, or sweet tea. Man, I'm definitely. This is easy for me. I don't really like root beer, but I do like root beer floats, but not to the level of the sweet tea or the milkshake. So I'm probably going to go trash the root beer float and then go with probably box the sweet tea. Do love some sweet tea, but I like get a half cut. So it's sort of like, you know what I mean? It's not a real, it's like a cross. It's like a hybrid bass. It's not a real legit, it's a 50-50. So I'm going to like not give myself, you said sweet tea. So it's got to go box. And then I'm going to go with the milkshake. But it's got to be chocolate, man. Some sort of chocolate base. That's the way to go. If it's peanut butter, maybe, or Oreo in there, something like that. It's money. So it's rich. What about you guys?
Yeah, I used to do milkshakes all the time on the way to work, but I feel like they're so bad for you.
On the
But
way
they're so,
to work?
they're
Oh,
so
yeah.
good. Yeah. Get a milkshake.
He's going to burn it off at work.
Time to go to work.
Yeah.
No, this was a long time ago when I was a lot younger, and it burned off a lot quicker. Yeah, I don't want to copy Drew, so I'm going to go milkshake second. So milkshake's getting boxed. I'm not a fan of the root beer floats. I've never like, I don't hate them. I can drink them. I just like never choose a root beer.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Something's wrong with me, I guess. But I
Justin,
love sweet tea.
you think this is a fantasy show? You're like, I got to go different than Drew so I can make up some points. You're still in the mindset. I got to make up points with these guys.
Where's my bag? But yeah, I do love sweet tea, and to me it's almost a toss up. But sweet tea, my grandmother used to make fantastic sweet tea, and I think I got to go sweet tea. So I'm gonna fish the sweet tea, box the milkshake, and then trash the nasty root beer float.
Nasty root beer float. Ouch. All right. Well, I'm going to trash the milkshake. I'm going to box sweet tea. I'm going to fish the root beer float.
Look at
Nice.
I haven't had one in ages, but there's something about a root beer float. Maybe it's the child in me. My dad and I used to always go get him. He was right down the road. But I don't get me wrong. I may have trashed the milkshake, but I am an absolute lover of vanilla milkshakes. I get yelled at all the time by my wife when we go get ice cream. She gets like these crazy different flavors each time. It's never the same one, and I'm always vanilla milkshake. She's like, "Oh my god, you're so plain."
Vanilla.
I'm like, well, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. You guys have stayed with me before at tournaments, but probably not a lot. I mean, maybe, I don't know how many times, probably a couple times, but one thing that all the guys know about me at tournaments is pretty funny. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I almost always get ice cream and I'll even pour some milk in it and mix it around. Essentially makes it a milkshake, but at the end of the day, man, those tournaments at our Airbnb houses, it sounds gross to some people, but I will literally just chow down on like ice cream and I'll go soak in the hottest bath I can because my muscles are so just destroyed and I just want to like basically have a hot tub, and eat ice cream, man. It's good. So it's kind of like the cut ice cream for Polinick in a way. I'm like celebrating the day, I worked hard, found some fish, didn't find fish, whatever, just worked hard, practice or tournament, and I reward myself,
It's he's the Real Housewives of the tournament. That's basically what it is. He's got his soap bath, his bath bomb, and he's got his milkshake.
Yeah, a little Epsom salt. Yeah, come on.
And you do them like at simultaneously, so it's like you're in the bath, like the warm bath, drinking or I guess
Sometimes.
eating the
Yeah,
okay.
sometimes simultaneously. Yeah.
Don't forget the
man.
candles. He's got the candles and the smooth jazz with his Bassmaster magazine off the side.
No, it's a podcast. You know that. We've already been over this. It's a podcast.
Sorry, Justin's got the magazine.
You guys are being too loud in the other room. Come on, quiet it down. I'm trying to chill here in the bath.
You got crime podcasts on, true crime.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny,
awesome.
man.
All right. So next one we have creek, swamp, or flooded timber.
Ooh.
Wow.
This might be the toughest yet. I really like
this
all
might
three.
be the toughest yet. I think I'll go flooded timber. I'll trash that. Just because I just visualize that being like still in like all this open water and everyone's just scoping fish and 15 foot over 80 foot or whatever. Well, not 80.
I had to bring the S word in here. Okay.
Yeah,
we went
right.
a whole show without the S word and you ruined it.
We did.
Getting demonetized now.
Are there any boat docks?
No. I was talking about, yeah. You totally misunderstood, Bailey. I was talking about scope, the stuff you drink before, like the mouthwash. Some people, you scope the fish, you pour it on your baits, and it's like a scent. They think it catches it. I was just talking about scoping fish like that. So you totally misunderstood.
We're getting demonetized, Bruce.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll trash those standing timber. And then I will go. I mean, I think I don't know. I think I'm going to go with I'll box the swamp, and then I'll fish the creek.
Shocker.
Just because, shocker, right? I just feel like that's where, a creek is, there's a lot of sizes to creeks. It's weird how there's no real, what's the word? No real reason why something's called a creek or a river. But I'll just say, as long as this is a big enough creek to have some decent sized fish, I'm going to fish the creek. And in my imagination scenario, it is. And it's somewhere, where I'm able to catch either smallmouth or shoal bass or Alabama bass or whatever, some big fish and some moving water with some current, rapids, just fun stuff like that. So you can float from point A to point B. And the swamp's great. I love the swamp, dude. Cypress trees. Justin, I know you love them too. So I got a feeling you might be going that direction, but that's a fun bite. And it's just, you feel like nobody can hit all this stuff. So I think I've got fresh fish everywhere. It's that confidence on every cast because it's my ADHD. It's great. I'm sitting there, there's a tree, just constantly hitting it all. And it's fun because you can kind of get lost in the swamp and get into some wild places. So that was a tough one, man. But yeah, that's I think what I'm going to stick with.
All right.
Yeah, dude, I remember running into you on Caddo.
Yeah.
And I was pedaling 4.5, like 5 miles to get to a spot. It was a human powered only event. And not only did I run into you there with no pedal drive, then it's like you went an additional like 5-mile loop around. Like you ended up doing almost twice as much as I did with the pedal drive.
It was crazy. I think I did like 12 or 13 miles or something in a big loop around that whole backcountry area.
I thought I did good. I was patting myself on the back. Yay, you outworked everybody, and then I run into you. But yeah, I love the swamp. But I think I gotta box it. I think I gotta box the swamp because the standing timber is just, I don't know. I love standing timber.
Ooh.
I love Lake Fork. There's a lake in Virginia that they basically tried to make a little mini Lake Fork. I think it's 800 some acres, something like that. And they just left all the trees in it when they built the lake. And it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite places to go. I feel like it's an equalizer. Like it almost makes it more fair for the fish. There's so much stuff for them to wrap up in. It's like adding an extra layer of difficulty to the fishing. But yeah, I love fishing shallow in the springtime in a lake that's got standing timber.
I like how he says it's 800 acre lake that in Virginia they just flooded it. It's awesome, but he doesnit name the lake. So now it's more intriguing. Now I just want to go Google 800 acre lake in Virginia and figure out what find it because man,
everybody knows it.
I'm just kidding.
I'll say it's Prairie Creek. Everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
figured it was
still
one of those
good,
over there.
even though it
Yeah.
gets pounded all the time.
There's
It's just a cool place.
slot limits to that lake, or is it? Or
Yeah, I
no?
think they got. I think it's still a 16 to 24, one over, and I don't
Wow.
remember what you're allowed to harvest below 16, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of fish in that inside that slot.
I fished it once, and it is a good lake. It's a fun lake. So
Yeah.
And so I hate to trash the creek because I kind of like Drew. Like I'm picturing my favorite little creek, and I had one of my best my best smallmouth days ever. I had 3 citation smallmouths in an afternoon last year, and it was awesome. But not every creek is that good. So
yeah, he gave us a tough question, and that's the point of this game. It really is, because whenever the F Marry Kill, you're always like, oh god, this is so hard. How am I going to choose? Like it's the same thing.
F them all.
You had a good, you did a good 3.
God, you did not just say that.
Oh man.
Oh god.
But no, those are good. Those are 3 good ones.
That's a damn clip right there.
There's a clip.
Off them all.
Gone off the rails.
No kidding. That's what this segment's all about, though.
Yeah, it is. You said it was the non-serious.
That's what we
side.
want. Yeah, that's what we want. All right. I'm gonna trash the creek. I'm going to box the flooded timber, and I'm going to fish the swamp. Because I think I love any means of catching them. I think people know that, especially if they watch my personal channel, because there's a whole commingle of different ways I catch them. But I think if I had to choose, I think braided line punching is probably my absolute favorite way to catch them by far.
Yeah.
So a swamp to me sounds like bring 2 rods, bring a punching rod and a frog. And
dude, I get in some hyacinth or whatever's floating around there. Just mat
I don't
it
care
up.
what it is.
Yeah,
I don't care what it is.
As long as you need an ounce to get through it, then let's go.
That's what I want. I want to see
fun.
the mat shake. I want to scream like a little girl when I feel my bait just get absolutely throttled. That's what I want.
Yeah, that's a good bite, man. It is when your line
Timber's
just
fun
jumps.
too. Timber's fun. Creeks are fun. I'm not gonna say they're not. But flooded timber, that could be fun. Flipping a jig or a spinner bait. That's a hell of a time. Don't get me wrong, but man, that swamp, dude. There's just something about the big line factor of it. That's just getting with the big, gnarly largemouth that are just in the ugly stuff. That's fun.
Yeah.
All about that life.
It's cool having different answers, really. I mean, if we all said the same stuff and we all agreed, then it's like, man, it's just more people that are getting pushed towards, the stuff that I like to do. When I hear you say something different, I'm like, good, man. Cause I like to hang out in the creeks. You go hang out over there. You do
Everybody
your thing.
go to Drew's Creeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone go to Justin's Lake.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is nice. That just that the bass can live in all those different places and get big and in all those different places. And it's kind of like, there's something for everybody in this sport. That's what's actually really cool, whether it's electronics and clear offshore or all the stuff like we just talked about. It's more, very visual targets. It's a cool sport, man. There's nothing like it for sure. So,
yeah. All right. This next one, we're going to simplify it a little bit. It is. You ready for it? Ketchup, mustard, or hot sauce?
Ooh. Wow. Ketchup, mustard, or hot sauce. I'm probably going to trash the hot sauce just because, man, the older you get, I'm telling you.
That's what he gets for that answer.
I'm trashing it. Now, when I was younger, it just hits your gut. I don't know.
It still does when I'm young, but it's still good.
It just, it's good, but I just can't do stuff that's super hot anymore. Like if it's super, super hot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll still, eat some hot stuff, but spicy stuff, but not super hot, or I'll be really hurting. The mustard or ketchup, that's a tough one, man. If you would have put mayonnaise in there, You know, I like mayonnaise, but you didn't, so I gotta choose here. I think I'll go box the mustard. Definitely like mustard, but I think ketchup I just use a little bit more often than you know, on whatever fries or you know burgers or whatever. But I mix it with mayonnaise. I think it's amazing, dude. It's like a cool little sauce I make. But anyway, I'm weird, so
Yeah, I mean, I could only pick 3, so I kind of picked the 3 basic ones. But I guess
Yep.
if I could have been mean, I could have done like, you know, mayo, barbecue sauce, and like boss sauce or something like that. Like you could have gotten weird with it. There's so
You get
many.
real
like,
weird with this
onion
one, dude.
barbecue,
Chick-
golden bar, like,
Chick-fil-A sauce, dude. I mean, come on.
oh, that
That's
wins
stuff
above all.
yeah.
That is nothing
yeah.
comes close to that.
That's
Put it
real
on
good. Yeah.
everything.
I
It's like a little
once
bit of
was on a trip with somebody. We all had the whole group got Chick-fil-A, and the one dude was it Polynesian or something like that.
yeah,
Chick-fil-A
Polynesian
style?
sauce. Yeah.
Someone requested that and said they don't want Chick-fil-A sauce, and I haven't talked to him since.
We're not friends anymore.
We're not allowed
Yeah.
to talk.
I mean, Chick-fil-A sauce is sort of just like honey mustard mixed in with a little barbecue. It's kind of like the best of everything. You know, a little
Hey, don't you make it sound simple,
mayo.
okay?
yeah.
It's God's
Well,
creation.
Magical.
It's God's nectar.
it is good. I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's good. I know it's not probably good for you, but it's good.
Oh, it's
No
horrible
doubt
for
about
you,
that.
but
Yeah,
that's why it's
horrible
good.
for you. But when you're burning, when I eat the fast food, it's usually on these trips when we're just burning calories like crazy. That's why I'm like, oh, milkshake, ice cream. I just want the junkiest stuff usually on these trips because I'm just so depleted of like energy and burn so many calories. So we
That's
can
what Drew's
afford it.
got. He's got his little bath bomb, his candles, his ice cream, and a thing of mayo right next
Yeah,
to
my
him.
waffle fries with Chick-fil-A sauce sitting there.
Just a thing of mayo, just like the squirt mayo too. So you just take it. You ever watch
Yeah.
Don't Mess with Zohan?
No,
You've never
No.
Long
watched?
time ago.
no.
Okay, so they put like the joke is that this dude's like from I'm not gonna try to name the country because I can't remember off the top of my mind, but basically it was he puts hummus on everything, like brushes his teeth with hummus, like puts it on absolutely everything.
Ew.
Like that's Drew. It's with mayo. Like
Yeah. I do like mayo. There's no doubt about it. It's not that great for you either, but
yeah,
I do like it.
You only live once, right?
Yeah.
All right, Justin.
Mine's gonna be boring. I think I'm gonna copy Drew exactly. The ketchup and the mustard's a little.
There you go. He copied you. That's his answer.
Exactly.
I have all the power.
Like,
Yeah.
and my arguments are pretty much the same. Like I've never done well with the spicy food. I remember one time I was a teenager, I think, and we were at a Chinese buffet, and I remember going down one of the meat aisles and grabbing what I thought was like a couple of beans, like cooked green beans or something, and I bit half of one of the big bite. I think I bit half of it off, and then I was like joke. I couldn't breathe, like running to the bathroom because it was some super spicy thing that, yeah. So yeah, I've never liked the spicy food. I don't like it when I'm sweating, like when I'm not. I have not done exercise. It's not hot out. I'm just sitting there in sweat. I don't like that. So yeah, trashing the hot sauce. I'll box the mustard. I like mustard, but I use ketchup more. So fishing the ketchup.
All right. I am going to trash ketchup. I'm going to box the mustard. I'm going to fish the hot sauce.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Not surprised.
No.
put hot sauce on. Absolutely. Maybe it's the buffalo in me.
Ooh.
There you go.
Oh, you said no. Damn it. I forgot that you had the luggage.
Yeah.
I can do it too.
The tides have turned.
Wait, how do I switch this back to our original order?
I don't know.
Keep it.
Yeah, I'm all messed up now.
Dude, I put hot sauce on everything. Like,
What is it? Frank's or Tabasco or which one?
yes.
Yes to both.
All of
Whatever's there.
My wife,
Whatever's there.
she loves, I think it's Frank's. She loves hot sauce, so I think it's Frank's that she prefers. But
Dude, so we literally like it's not super hot sauce specific, but like sriracha's pretty good too. But like on everything, eggs, in like
Yep,
eggs
sure do
wraps,
that.
things like that, like absolutely everything. But there's actually one thing in Buffalo, I think it's Buffalo specific. But like when we're talking like chicken and different things like that, there is a sauce in that you can get in stores in Buffalo that is a hot sauce, like wing sauce and blue cheese mix. So you don't have to buy both. It's actually it's
mixed.
it's
Perfect.
heavy. It gives Chick-fil-A a run for its money.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. The buffalo. I mean, I do like the buffalo chicken. You know, when they make that, it's pretty good. If it's, as long as it's not too spicy, that's good. My wife loves those too. So, yeah, I get it, Bailey. Another different, answer for Bailey. So this is interesting.
I'm just a weird one, boys. Sorry. All right, we got 2 left. We're gonna wrap this sucker up. So I have just lost it. Oh, here it is. I have video games, watching sports, or reading. Kind of bringing back our inner childhood here.
All right. I'll go. I guess. Obviously, it sounds like I'm first. I guess I'll go. I will do I will trash the reading. That's what it was, right? Trash the reading, and then I'll box the video games, even though I played them like all the time when I was a kid, not so much anymore. And then I'll definitely fish the sports, watching sports. Yeah,
Okay.
love sports. All sports. I mean, I pursued a master's degree in sports management because I love sports, right? So I'm all about it. I'm excited about the NFL draft coming up this Thursday and all that's going down with that, and follow, even though you get busier when you get older, you don't have time to follow everything as closely as you once could. But yeah, follow baseball, follow the PGA Tour, follow loosely the basketball, college and NBA, UFC, kind of all that good stuff, and of course our sport, always following that. So yeah, I think that's my answer for sure.
Okay.
I'm copying Drew again.
Oh, dude, come on.
I can't help
It's
it.
no surprise that we
to go
fish the
first
same
every
too.
time.
Yeah, I was about to say that's why I'm like, I feel like, but yeah,
It's just fancy fishing
Good.
all over again. He's just copying Deacon.
Bailey's like, go get a room, you two.
Drew's winning, so I'm gonna copy him. No, I like I like the sports. I feel like it's like something we're always doing. Thanksgiving, watching the games. Like there's always sports on. I feel like. Shoot, what were the other options? I forget
Video
the other.
games.
Oh yeah, video games. Yeah, see, I probably would have picked video games, and now more like 15 years ago. Like I was super hooked on video games. Like I was in college when Halo came out. Not to date myself, but that original Halo and Halo 2. Oh my gosh, spent so many hours playing that game, and then the online, like the LANs and the playing over network. I would do that for hours, and I'd get home from work and and then eventually I got to a point where like you have enough responsibility that you don't have the amount of time to put into it, and you're playing with these 11-year-old German kids that are like taunting you and I'm kicking your ass, and, like little high squeaky voices. And then it's like you get mad, and it's like at a certain point I just had to like walk away from it because I was like, I'm gonna murder some little 10-year-old kid. but not for real, for whoever's big brother listening.
No, clip it before that. Clip it before.
Demonetized.
But yeah, video games. Yeah, there was definitely a time where I would have been fishing that, but yeah, it's gotta get boxed, and then the books I don't read too much. Me not too smart.
Me not too smart. I'm gonna trash reading. We sound like horrible human beings.
I
right
know.
now.
Sound like a bunch of
All of our
morons.
teachers are so disappointed in us right now.
Yeah.
Former teachers.
I get my answers. This is kind of tough. So me now, I would fish watching sports, but me as a kid, I would totally fish video games. I was big on Call of Duty, especially like middle school, high school. I was that kid talking crap to you, Justin. That was me.
It probably was.
But, yeah.
You and all your friends.
Yeah. I would get home from hockey practice every night and just completely ditch homework and just go play video games until like 10 p.m. But was big on that. But I say now it's got to be watching sports and box, playing video games. I still play now and then. I got a PlayStation over here, but basically it's basically my means to play with like Fortnite or something like that with my dad and my brother. We talk crap to other people together. So now it's like a family affair. So, yeah.
You mute everybody else and then taunt them amongst yourself.
No, don't even mute it. We just let them have it.
Yeah, that's
I
funny.
don't want to hear the response. That's all about.
You know, is this sort of like the fantasy show where can I go back now because we're live and change it? Because I want to trash the video games. Because actually, when I think about it, I used to play them like crazy. Like Justin's saying, dude, I play them zero. And I used to play them like crazy. So that's why I put them in the middle. But really, I read more, especially if you start counting internet reading. You know what I mean? Just like Bassmaster.com, things like that. You just said reading. You didn't say books. So I'm actually going to change mine around, a little switcheroo to gain some points on Justin here. And didn't see that coming, did you? So
well, I'm going to change my answer now too.
Yeah.
Darn, still live. You can still do that. I guess I did it. Yeah. Joke's on me.
All right. We'll end this last one on a fishing one. Chatterbait, jig, or frog?
Oh.
All right. I'm going to trash the frog, as fun as that is. Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't that long of a delay. I'm going first every time. I'm going first every time here, guys. So trashing the frog, even though it's a fun bite and it's, everybody's, most everyone's favorite to obviously see happen. But
wait, did you say trash the frog?
Yeah, I think I'm going to trash the frog.
I think I'm not even going to get you out of the window. I'm just going to kick you from the studio.
Just forever. That's one less person throwing a frog, dude. You should be happy over there. Be like, sweet. So I will trash that, and then I'll go box the jig, and I'll fish the chatterbait. And that's just because, the jig is super versatile too, obviously, and it's staple, of all staples in bass fishing, the original. But the chatterbait, man, it just, that vibration, it just calls them. You can still slow roll it in your colder months. Use an ounce or 3/4 ounce to really get down deep. Slow roll it. Throw a big swim bait on the back. You can fish it fast, wake it on the surface with like a 3/8 ounce, burn it. And it just seems to call them. It's just for power fishing, the way I fish most often. It's definitely something that's, been a staple. I've caught a lot of fish on a jig as well. And, but man, that's gotta be the order for me for sure.
All right. Dustin?
It hurts me to trash a jig, but I think that's what I'm doing. I really like a swim jig around grass. I love it, especially when it's calm. You don't have that wind and stuff. I love a swim jig. I feel like it's super versatile. You can fish it on the bottom, kind of like a traditional jig. You can swim it high in the water column. You can do a little Alabama shake deal. But I do better with the chatterbait. Like if I could only have two around grass, which, yeah, I guess is what I'm in my little scenario. I'm around some nice grass, and a chatterbait I think is just more versatile because I can do the exact same thing. I had some really good days last fall when it was cold, letting the chatterbait fall, hit the bottom, and then just up. Just almost fishing it like a worm, just up off the bottom, or like a blade bait, just lift, drop, lift, drop. Like there's so much you can do with it. It's versatile. It calls fish. It's hard. It's hard for me to trash the jig, but I got to. And then chatterbait, I want to go chatterbait 1. I feel like if it was a scenario where I'm going to catch the most fish, like if that's the goal, I'm probably going chatterbait. But I'm going to box the chatterbait because the frog bite is just too much fun. It's like I would rather catch 5 frogfish to 100 chatterbait fish, I think. Like if we're just talking pure fun, enjoyment watching that fish come unglued on it, the massive explosion on the surface. It's like, I'm going frog.
Did you see
I'm
Matt
fishing the frog.
Aries footage? Did you guys see that one the Matt Aries caught? That was a pretty cool eat. Did you see that one, Justin? Yeah.
I saw
don't know.
bits and pieces. I don't think I saw the
You
one you're
gotta look
talking
at it.
about.
I don't know if Bassmaster put it on their Instagram or not. They should have. It was that cool of an eat on a frog. One of the best they've ever captured. His cameraman did a great job. But you got to go look it up. I'll see if it's on there.
All right. I'm going to trash the chatterbait.
Ooh.
Trash the chatterbait. I'm going to. What in the world was
Sorry,
that?
I'm trying to see if that clip's there.
Oh, I'm going to.
Jig versus frog.
Box the jig.
Hmm.
Fish the frog. There's just so many places you can throw a jig or a frog too. Like, you don't need to throw it on slop. You don't need to throw it in grass. I think some of the best bites I've ever gotten on with a frog have been when there's no grass involved at all. Like skipping it under hanging trees, especially mayfly hatch, things like that, or late summer. Because a lot of times, I mean, if you get even a lake that gets decent pressure, overhanging trees, any shade lines, they don't usually see a frog. They see a wacky rig, chatterbait, spinnerbait, something different. They don't usually see that frog that's just sitting up there like, huh, that boy's lost. He's dumb. He's over. I'm gonna eat that. That's, I don't know. Yeah, definitely fishing the frog. But.
All right. I'm not surprised at that one bit. But I will share that the Matt area. I found it. You guys want to see it? If you want to share
now, Drew's just trying to like cancel this podcast because now we're gonna get copyright.
But anyway, there it is. I don't know if you saw that or not, Justin.
Yeah,
I think I did see that one.
Send him the link.
I saw it on my phone though, so I didn't get like the full big blow up. So I'll watch it on the computer next.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, boys, we're winding up on 2.5 hours on this show now, and I still got some editing to do. So we're gonna wrap this sucker up. Appreciate you guys taking time out. Drew, looking forward to seeing how the first kayak adventure series goes for Shoalipalooza. And Justin, looking forward to the new episode of Kayak Fishing Weekly this week. I want to tell the folks a little bit about who you got on.
Yeah, it's the one with Wyatt dropping this week, right?
They're both because I'm a horrible team editor thing.
No,
double album. You're Taylor Swift, dude. Double album, double drop.
Yeah. So the
I don't know
A
what that
side
means, but I'm ashamed of you that you do know that, Drew.
So the A side, well, I don't know. I don't want to put one on the A side and the B side. Yeah, I'll just say on one side, we've got Wyatt Hammond, and for anybody that doesn't know, he won the KBF. Well, I'll do it this way. Basically, Russ Snyder's and Corey, we're going back, or sorry, Cody Milton, we're going back and forth for I don't know what, 4 or 5 years. It was one of those guys winning KBF Angler of the Year. Wyatt won last year. He also won the championship last fall, Trail Series Championship, and then he just won the Gunnersville KBF National Championship. He's done really well in Bassmaster events, Hobie events. Dude is a hammer. He's not been on the national scene for very long, but it was fun picking his brain and hearing some of his I guess, about his style. And then also dropping this week, I got to talk to Mr. Jason Isaacs, another great fisherman, and he is the latest of the Bassmaster winners. And now I haven't actually gone back and done a count of how many guys have a Bassmaster Blue Trophy like the ones that Drew has there. But I know, Drew, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that right?
Well, I mean, three
regular season and
a
championship.
Yeah, 3 regular season and championship and AOI. But in terms of tournaments, just 4.
They've done it for, I don't remember if it's 4 or 5 years now. I don't remember if it was 2020 or 2019 when they started. But basically, there's not very many guys that have a Blue Trophy. Jason's the latest. So it was cool picking his brain and hearing how he got that done. And I forgot to mention it on the podcast, but I'll say it here. Did any of you guys hear them mention the Bassmaster Kayak Series on the live coverage.
Oh
this
yeah,
past week.
they've been doing that a lot. Like
Yeah.
they've been doing that lives for the whole year. I've actually even recorded some clips that they'll throw out. I mean, Ronnie, I'll say this. I even texted him this today. I said, dude, I appreciate the fact that you know what's going on. Cause I mean, this isn't like me, whatever, whining or complaining or whatever, but most of the bass fishing world, the bass boat side of things, they don't really pay attention or care, but Ronnie really does, man. He's trying to really, and he knows that he'll shout out. I mean, I've heard him, shout out me and Russ and Eric Siddiqui and Zona. I guess he's AFCO with Christine. He's like, well, hit Christine and some names. So they know some people, and it's actually really good to see that. And hopefully that keeps catching on. But yeah, they mentioned Jason Isaacs. Yeah, I saw that.
They also mentioned your win on 10 Killer, but I thought it was cool. Just that was the first time I think I haven't been able to listen to live nearly as much as I would have liked this season. But hearing that was really cool this past week. The fact that the kayak guys are getting some love like on the national stage. So that's what we got this week.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, boys,
yeah,
I appreciate it. I got nothing else left to wrap up with. Beyond, make sure you guys check down below for the Omnia links because they're having some wicked sales. I don't know if you guys saw, but if you buy 2 packs of soft plastics, you get 1 free, and it's 15% off all jerk baits except for Mega Bass on Omnia Fishing.
Nobody likes those anyway.
Sweet.
Yeah, don't throw them; they don't work. But folks, appreciate y'all, boys. Appreciate you too, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
See ya.